Hi everyone, and welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. I've got a cracking episode for you today. We've got 5 angler interviews, and we are reviewing the Mallacoota round of the Daiwa Bream series brought to you by ABT. Or maybe this is the ABT brought to you by Daiwa, not sure. Anyway, the round sponsor was TT, and look, they had a cracking event with some huge bags. I'm going to roll the intros and tell you all about it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is where you need to be every Tuesday to find out all the latest tips and tricks to help you target bream on lures. You'll get to hear from some of Australia's elite bream competition anglers and see how they were able to achieve their results in competitions around the country. Now, here's your host, the 2019 Hobie Kayak Fishing World Champion, Andrew Deeth.
All right. So as usual, there's lots of things to cover. First of all, I want to thank the anglers for this episode and all the other episodes for jumping on and sharing with me. There's always some great information, some great nuggets of wisdom in terms of catching bream and what have you. And this episode is no different. So thanks to the guys for jumping on. I really appreciate it. I missed Neil Kelly in third place. I just couldn't find him on socials to actually reach out to him. So maybe if someone wants to get him in touch with me for next time, I'd really love to talk to him. All right. One of the things I wanted to do this year was to try and promote some of the shows, some of the competitions before they start. So in line with that, we've got, this will come out on the 19th of March. On the 24th of March on Sunday, we have the first round of the East Coast Bream Series out of Sydney Harbour. So if you're interested in that, you've got a couple of days, jump on that and go down and see them. In Queensland, we have on the 23rd of March, so that must be the Saturday down the Tweed River, they've got round 1. So we'll be covering that. So hopefully you guys have a great comp, and I look forward to talking to the winners. Same weekend, Vic Bream Classics, 23rd and 24th of March at Gippsland. Now, this is going to be an interesting round. How is Gippsland going to hold up compared to the ABT? What sort of fish are they going to catch? Is it going to be comparable? Can't wait to see what comes out of that round. And while this is all going on, the fast boats, well, actually over there, they can't go fast in their rivers, but the boats over there, they're 23rd and 24th on the Blackwood River. So I look forward to talking to those. So there's heaps coming out of this next weekend. I've got a bunch of shows already recorded, half recorded. Not sure what I'm going to do with them. I'm just going to hold them back and release them as we've got time, or double them up. Anyway, I guess we'll work that out. So let's get into all the stats and what have you for this weekend or for this competition. So back in February, the 10th and 11th of February. So on the Saturday, we had a very high fish activity, 96% on the fish activity wheel. Had a minor bite period at 5:21 a.m. through to 6:51 a.m. A major bite period at 12:07 p.m. through to 2:37 p.m. High tide was at 9:16 a.m. at 1.64, running down to a low tide at 4:06 p.m. at 0.03. On the Sunday, we had a minor bite period at 6:37 a.m. through to 8:07, major bite period at 1 p.m. through to 3:30, and high tide at 10:04 at 1.63, running down to a low at 4:48 at 0.04. All right, the average fish. So we'll start with the non-boaters. Now, when your non-boaters get fish of this quality, you'd know it's been a good competition. And our Liam came in first with 5 fish for 5.169, and the second place was 5.026. So that was closely fought competition. Anyway, 6 fish for 5.169 will give you an average of 862 grams per fish. So that's going to win a lot of boat comps, that sort of average. So well done to Liam and well done to the non-boaters. Now, obviously, Mark, he came in with 10 fish for 1.593, which is obviously an average of, say, 1.16 kilo per fish. So cracking bags. Very exciting to see fish of that caliber come in, especially over the week down there. What a great week Mark had. All right, let's get into the angler interviews. Here is Judd. Okay, so coming in second place in the non-boater division, dropping a bag of an even 2.4 kilos on the Saturday, backing it up for 3 fish for 2.626, giving him a total of his 6 fish for 5.026 kilos. And second place I'd like to welcome for the first time to the Bream Fishing Project, Mr. Judd Kirkland. Welcome, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Mate, well done on the weekend, mate. What a great result.
Yeah, absolutely stoked, mate. For first time in Victoria, first time at Mallacoota, and just had a really good weekend.
Definitely a good result. And did I hear correctly in our pre-chat the first time you caught blacks?
Yeah, first black bream ever, first opportunity I've ever really had to head down to the southern comps, and absolutely stoked to get a few crackers, and they're a really cool fish to fight.
Yeah, and so but if you go back to your first fish, what was your first impression of it, like in the way it fought and what have you?
Well, the take I thought was pretty similar to a yellowfin, but the fight was completely different.
Yeah.
There was a lot of head shakes and a lot of pause, so you'd get a couple of seconds where it'd dart from one section to the next and then just shake its head, sitting still for a long time. And compared to a yellowfin where they'll just battle and they'll run and they'll run and they'll run, but these things seem to give up a little bit. I wouldn't say easier, but they give up a little bit sooner. They're not doing the big runs, but they're doing nasty stuff.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I remember the first time I fished Cuda, the first few fish, handful of fish, I thought, I've gone flathead, and they all came up brim.
Yeah, I did that at the start. So when on the flats on day two, we caught a couple of them there, and I had the same thing, caught them as flathead, but I've been fooled before, so I sort of take them as they are, and I'll fight them just in case. And sure enough, these big bronzy slabs would show up, and happy days.
Yeah, very good. All right, mate. So the non-boated division, who did you get paired up with on day one, and how did they sort of play out?
On day one, I had Cam Whittam, which was a lucky draw. Cam knows Mallacoota very well.
Yeah.
He's a very, very talented angler, and knew where to go. That was the first time I'd ever been on that water. I hadn't pre-fished it at all.
Yeah.
And just was more just happy to go along for the ride and check out this area and hopefully be able to get my boat down there next year.
Yeah.
Once it's prepared and go from there. But yeah, he's a very good fisher and sort of took us down the front to start with, and we bagged out very early. I was very impressed. That was good fun.
Yeah. So first time on the system down there, and you bagged out within a very short period of time. I've been pretty happy with that.
Oh, I was stoked, mate. Even though my aim for the weekend was to catch a black bream, we started off and chasing yellowfin.
Yeah.
I still had an awesome time, and as I said there before, where we were situated, it was a little bit difficult to fish from the back end, but just watch Cam do his stuff was pretty awesome. And I only had 3 fish to get, so once I'd sort of got my 3, I sort of tried to avoid a little bit, sort of looking all past his ears, but had a really good time.
Definitely. And what were you guys using, or what were you using to target them down the front of the system?
I started off, just because there's a fair bit of current there, I rigged up a 12th, and I just upped it to an 8th and threw just a 2.5 inch grub to start with.
Right.
And that's all I played with. I didn't really know what was on the bottom. So you'd see that there was a couple of rocky patches there, and I didn't know whether it would be sort of worth chucking a crab in that sort of current. So I just stuck to what I knew and threw 2.5 inch grubs just in a motor oil colour, the same as everybody else seems to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were picking it up off the bottom or picking it up as it was coming through the water.
Okay. So you went down the front. Where'd you go? Where'd you head off to after that?
From there, we turned back and sort of headed up a little bit. It wasn't too far. There was just this one bank that we saw as we were cruising past, and Cam pulled in there. I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly where it was, even if I did know, mate. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's
I know the area very well. But we pulled in there, and you could see them. You could see these black bream cruising around, and we'd seen a little bit of school there, and in amongst them there was only one big one.
Okay.
That I could see in this crystal clear water.
Yeah. And
I threw a plastic in. It was a different plastic that I threw in that one, and the smaller one scattered, and the big one came and grabbed it. And I was stoked. Just at the base of a sort of a submerged tree root system. That was really cool to see. And that was the first black bream I got on board.
Right, that's crazy. So you basically could see the fish, and then the unusual situation where the little one scattered away, and the big one ended up taking it. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see.
Was that your big fish for the day?
On day one, yeah, that was my biggest fish. I think that was a 34 forker.
Okay.
Off memory. And yeah, it was really cool. But we were moving along pretty quick, and I tried to get a photo of a selfie with the thing, and it came out really terrible. But yeah, it was still just stoked to get one on board, and I knew that there's a good chance that I'd see a better one or another one over the weekend, and managed to get a better photo later on.
Yeah, fair enough. And throughout the rest of the day, was there any more notable catches or anything that stands out?
No, we got a few fish, but nothing substantial, nothing in size. I don't think I upgraded after that one, I don't think.
Yeah.
We did move down to a flat system. While we're at the front, we had the electric motor on full Vickies for the entire time, and it ended up dying in the last hour and a bit. So we ended up finding somewhere where we could do a natural drift.
Yeah.
And we found a spot where there was a couple of guys. He knew the area, I didn't. And we didn't get anything for a fair while of that drift, and then all of a sudden we had a double hookup.
Okay.
And they were good fish. I don't think that we upgraded either of those ones, but then we caught it for the day and headed on back.
Right. Okay. So then you get back to the weigh and you've got 2.4 even. Mm-hmm. Whereabouts that leave you overnight?
Well, when we were heading back, I actually checked. I tried very hard not to check it as the days goes on, but it gets a bit exciting when you know you're at the 20th.
Yeah. And
I was 4th when we were heading back, and by the time we got back to the ramp, I think I ended up 9th. I think.
Yeah.
9th on day one.
Yeah, I'm looking down through the list, and there's a lot of good bags on day one.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But we finished early on that day too. That was a 2:00 finish.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But by the time we got back to the ramp, it was 2:00, and I'd been overtaken, leapfrogged a few times, but that's okay though. I was just stoked for the day and how it turned out.
Exactly. All right, mate. Day 2, mate. Who were you paired up with, and how did day 2 play out?
Day 2, I had Liam Allan, who again is a very talented angler. He definitely knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And
I was pretty stoked to know that we were going to do a fair bit more flats fishing, because that's probably my favourite type of bream fishing.
Yeah.
I do a fair bit of it around Sydney and the Hawkesbury and Botany, and I rigged up accordingly, and I think it was on day 2 that the first fish that I got on the boat was a 37 forker.
Right. Okay.
And that was my kicker for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what pushed you up the leaderboard there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you get him on?
That one was on a Berkeley power boat. They're a T-tail shad.
T-tail shad.
Not many people that use them, but I'd had a fair bit of luck on them a while ago, and I'd heard that they were being discontinued and saw that the prices had dropped, so I bought thousands of packets of these damn things.
Yeah.
And I've loved them ever since. Like, everything when you're on the flats pretty much works, but that's just my confidence, plastic, and that's what worked for me on day 2.
Yeah, okay. I looked that up. I do remember these. So these were a round body plastic with just a paddle tail on the back.
Yeah, they're like a round ribbed sort of plastic, but I would prefer to go something that's a little bit more sturdy, because if you are fishing the flats for these things, you can go through 4 packets easy an hour, just because the tails get nipped off very, very quickly by choppers or little flathead or whatever. So they're not the hardiest of plastics, but they definitely work, and I love using them in a low wind situation. I'll maybe a 1/40th or a 1/20th hidden weight, or even a 20th or a 16th standard TT.
Yeah,
and they work really well.
Yeah, I was going to say I have used them, and my memory is that tail actually beats pretty hard for a small tail. Does that sound fair?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's a very thin connection between the tail and the body and the lure, so it does have a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Even on a very slow sink.
Yeah.
It will still move, and that's probably why it's one of my favourite lures. It's easy to use.
Yeah, definitely. And what sort of colour do you like in them?
Just the watermelon. That's the only one I've got. That's the only one I use, and for some reason that's the one that works for me. So it's the same with every fisher. Every fisher's got a lure that will work for them, but not necessarily for other people. If you've got confidence in a lure, you're going to throw it a lot more than you will with one that doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, and how'd the rest of your day play out? How'd you end up filling your bag and what have you? And did you get any upgrades?
Yeah, well, from there on that flat, I think I got a second one that was very, very small. And then we shifted over to some rocky banks. Again, I can't really tell you exactly where they are because I don't know.
Yep.
And on that bank, I sort of kept the same plastic rigged up and just sort of boosted up to a 112 because it was a deeper drop. I think we were sitting about 15 foot, pretty close to the bank.
Yep.
And Liam had first cast, obviously. He's got the advantage spot, and I sort of sat at the back and dead baited these things. And I got, I think, one upgrade there. And at one point, I had a small one that I needed to get rid of, but I was pretty happy with where I was anyway. So.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. That's interesting because when you were paired up with Liam, I thought, okay, you're going to find somewhere straight up to go and throw crabs, but I'm assuming that wasn't the case in terms of you went to the flats first. Yeah,
well, on those rocky banks, I did have a throw with a crab for a little while, and I did mention it to Liam. I asked him, did he ever use crabs along here? And he said they weren't really easy to go to. So I put it down and went back to the plastic and just hammered away with that, just having a good time more than anything. I didn't really look at the app or the scoreboard until after that, after we left the rocky walls and headed back out to the flats.
Yeah.
We had a drama there again with the electric.
Okay.
And the wind had picked up horribly, so we were doing a very, very fast drift over the flats for the last few hours.
Okay.
We picked up a few there. I got rid of my last squeaker, which was awesome, which put me in the lead for the last big length of the tournament. Then I started looking a bit too much at the app and watching where everyone was, and it was pretty exciting. And yeah, had a really good time at it, mate. And I thought there might be a chance, but I also knew that I was up against some pretty talented blokes and knew that there was a good chance that they were going to get leapfrog near the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at the scoreboards, it's pretty tight in the top there. Like anyone gets an upgrade and the scoreboard changes around a bit. There's like 50, 70, 100 grams between it. So it was quite a nice little competition there.
Yeah, right near the end at probably about 3 o'clock. I think we were finishing at 3:20. I checked it. I think I was in the lead by around about 40 grams.
Yeah.
And same deal, heading back to the boat ramp, and we hit the 5 knot zone where we've got a bit of time to chill and just hit refresh and saw that I'd been leapfrog last second, and I couldn't have been disappointed though, mate. I'd had such a good weekend.
Yeah, very good. Very good. All right. In terms of across the 2 days, what sort of lines and leaders were you running?
On the flats, I've got just a standard 6-pound J-braid with a 5-pound leader, and that's what I'll use across the board over the flats in the lighter stuff. I had 4-pound to start with and got nipped by a couple of flathead, and I'm hoping they were flathead.
Yep.
And just upped it to a 5 after I saw the quality size of the fish that were actually sitting on the flat.
Yeah.
And that seemed to help. I didn't lose anything after that. And against the rock walls and things like that, I upped it to a 6 just in case, because there was some pretty gnarly structure there. But that's, again, a point that I didn't even realise until the day, that the black brim don't seem to quite nasty in structure. They seem to head deep more than head up into the structure.
Yeah, okay.
That was really strange to see. You'd hook them on the edge and they dart back at you and under the boat, and it was pretty cool.
Back to make it easy for you. One question I had with the flats fishing, were you slow rolling the plastics or you pause and drop, or how'd that look?
Well, when the wind picked up, I did up the jig head to a 12.
Okay.
Just so we'd have a bit more contact with it, because the wind was howling the afternoon on day 2.
Yeah.
And my technique of the flats is probably a little bit different to other blokes. I'll do a long cast and I try to have a little bit of loose line, I guess you'd call it. So I've got a big bow in the line, and I'll wait till it hits the bottom and wind in that slack. Just give it a bit of a hop, and then same deal. I try and have a little bit more loose line than I do tight over the flats.
Yeah.
Especially with the lighter plastics as well. I don't know, white seems to make a difference, but with a lot of pauses too. And with the slack line, I feel like the pause is a little bit more natural rather than the wind picking it up and or you pulling in that slack and the wind making a difference as to where your lure is sitting and how it's swimming back to you.
Yeah, okay. That's really interesting. All right. Before we head off the fishing over the weekend, what was any ones that you dropped that you went, oh no?
There was one on day one that rocked me a little bit because I'd noticed that I'd got a little bit of a wind knot near my leader knot. And on that cast, when I felt it and saw it go flying out, I hooked something rather large and it snapped at that knot. I know it snapped at that knot, and that was heartbreaking. But
ouch,
that's fishing for you, though, mate. As I said, I'm stoked with the result, and to come second in a place that I've never been before at all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a second place, and you get a grand final ticket based on that.
Oh, I didn't know that at all. I thought it was only first place to get the automatic entry.
Oh, I could be wrong. I might have got it straight.
My hopes up, mate. No,
if you'll tell me.
I'm sure. But I'll still do a few events. Like my boat's in the process right now of having its transom replaced.
Right.
So once that's done, I'll go back into the boater side. I've only done a few of the ABTs as non-boater and boater, depending on the location. But once my boat's sort of fixed up, I want to try and do a full year's worth.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then we'll see you back in and around Sydney in the East Coast Bream Series and maybe the ABT when it heads back down the Hawkesbury.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Fair enough. All right, mate. I reckon that's a pretty good rundown of the fishing. Second place, mate. What'd you get to take home?
I got a dialer lure pack. It came with a heap of hard bodies and plastics and jig heads, and most of the stuff, to be honest with you, I've already got. But you can never have too many lures.
That's right.
Mrs. is happy to see extra things go into the fishing room, of course.
Yeah. Hey, well, at least you don't have to head out and restock straight away. So that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, that's
all right. Very good. All right, mate. Well, that's a pretty good rundown, mate. Before we head off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, mate. Just there's a boat that's helped us out a heap in Compton in the past from Spotlight Marine. His name's Ange. He knows Minn Kota's back to front. He loves what he does. And yeah, we had a drama with a Minn Kota on a Friday on a prefish, and he met up with us that evening, and we got the Minn Kota up and running for the tournament for that weekend. And he's done it in the past for a few other mates, and hey, he's a really top bloke and he knows what he's talking about.
Right. And whereabouts is he out of? Where's he based?
He's based in Sydney.
Yeah.
I think he's about to move north, but he's got his drop-off points here in Sydney as well.
Yeah.
And I still think he'll be based around here for the next few months. And yeah, as I said, mate, he knows what he's talking about. He's helped me fix Minn Kotas remotely when he's been on holidays and interrupting him on leave. So I couldn't recommend him higher. He's a good bloke.
Perfect. All right. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? Anyone else?
No, that's it, mate. That's all. That's all.
Perfect. All right, mate. Well, that is fantastic, mate. Thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we get to have a talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, he's hoping. Thanks heaps for having me, mate.
No worries at all. Well done on the weekend.
Cheers.
All right, fishing.com.au, your one-stop bream lure and tackle shop. Pick up the latest tackle, including Muscle Vibes, Cranker Crabs, OSP Bent Minnows, Z-Man Plastics, Eco Gear Lures, and Daiwa Rods, Reels, and Tackle. Same-day shipping. Shop where the world champion, the Australian champion, and the current ABT champion shops. Fishing.com.au, online or in-store at shop 18/29 Kiora Road, Miranda. Now, if we jump on the fishing.com.au page, top line is a great line of things. You've got the Eco Gear Aqua Brim Prawn. So this is the 50ml one in salt and pepper, the one that Morgo loves. Pair that up with, I think it's I can't remember what the hook is. I'll have to look at it in the shop. Anyway, Adam will sort you out for that. Next in line, we've got a soft plastic mystery box. So what they've got there is $59. You get $100 worth of product, and Adam will ship that out. So if you, after getting a little bit of excitement in your life, then definitely jump on that. And then the stick minnow, the sinking 38mm stick, once again, one of Morgo's favorites. So definitely worth getting your hands on. Get some 2 pound to go with that. 3 pound at the most, straight through and fish it really light. Morgo's got a few videos on this, so it's worth taking your time to learn this technique. Anyway, fishing.com.au. All right. And finally, in first place in the non-boater section, I have Liam Allan. Now, Liam dropped 3 fish for 2.529 on the Saturday, backed it up with a bigger bag of 3 fish for 2.640, giving him a total of 6 fish for a huge 5.169 kilos. I'd like to welcome Liam to the show for the first time. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me, mate. I'm listening to your podcast a fair bit over the last couple of years, so I'm really pleased to be part of it.
Yeah, mate. It's made a great effort. And this is, I take it, this is your first win, I'd imagine.
Yeah. This is my first win in an ABT, so it's my third crack at it. First win.
Yeah. So 1 from 3. That's pretty good going, mate.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know whether it's luck or whatever it is, but yeah, whatever it is, I'm pretty happy at the moment.
Oh, you definitely take it. All right. So, mate, tell me, did you get a chance to get out for a prefish down there?
Yeah, I did. I got out for a prefish with my good mate Marlon Thompson. We were down there and we took out his boat. He was in the boaters. He was competing with the boaters, and we went out on the Friday. We checked out a few areas that he'd marked from a couple of weeks prior to the event. He'd been down there and he'd marked a few spots where he'd caught fish. So basically our plan for prefish was to hit similar areas to those that he'd marked prior, and we checked out a lot of flats and a lot of rocky edges and a lot of drop-offs and quite a mixed bag of structure types and things like that. And the weather for prefish was really good. It was a nice sunny day, and we got off early in the morning and pulled up to a few banks, and we found fish straight away. Luckily, on quite a range of structure types. So rocky banks had fish, silt flats had fish. We were able to sight cast a lot of big fish up in Top Lake. We were down at the bottom lake seeing fish on the flats. So pre-fish was really good for us. We went into day one feeling pretty confident that it was going to be a good comp and a lot of big bags would be dropped on day one.
Yeah, okay. And how did that prepare you for the comp? Were you thinking, okay, we didn't talk about this yet, but I'm going to tie on some grubs or some spikes or whatever. Did it give you an idea of what to start with?
Yeah, it certainly did. In that pre-fish, we found a lot of fish shallow that we were catching on lightly weighted soft plastics. We tried a variety of things, of surface lures and hard bodies, but we kind of struggled. We got the sense that there wasn't going to be much of a hard body bite on the Saturday if it was anything like the pre-fish. So basically the hard bodies went out the window for me, and it was going to be all about the lightly weighted soft plastics for the Saturday.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. I'm always interested to hear, how the pre-fish affects the competition. All right. Let's roll around to day one. Who did you draw as your boater, and tell us a bit about your day?
So for day one, I drew Peter Brukel.
Yeah.
And we took off and we went to fish shallow. We had a look at a couple of flats. Down in the bottom lake, there was a bit of wind forecast to get up sort of in the mid to late morning. So it was quite calm in the beginning, and we struggled to find fish up shallow, straight up. So we backed off the flats and we decided to fish a bit deeper in sort of that 10 to 15 foot depth. Peter was marking quite a lot of fish on the sounder, so we could see them there, and it was just a matter of getting them to bite.
Yeah.
What we did, we threw plastics around and we got a few fish, and it wasn't till, I reckon it would have been about 9 o'clock where we sort of started getting fish a bit more consistently in that deeper water. they were still quite timid, and they were hard to get to bite.
Okay.
Early on before the breeze got up.
Yeah.
There was a few boats around, but it wasn't too busy out there on Bottom Lake straight away. So we sort of just hung around and plodded away and waited for a bit of breeze to get up. And they eventually started biting, and I reckon it was about 9 o'clock by the time they did. So Peter and I got our bag quite quickly after that.
Yeah.
We got a decent yellow there. I think he was a 35 and a few blacks around the low 30s. And Peter had a decent bag himself. So that was the morning. And after we had our bags, we needed to go looking for upgrades. So after the breeze had got up, we went back to those flats where we had started. But the fish just weren't there. It was like they were shut down and they were timid.
Mm.
And there just wasn't many fish there like there would have been on prefish. We had a big southerly front come through on the night before, on the Friday night. So that really changed things up for those fish that were up shallow the day before.
Yeah.
So we really struggled on the flats. So we continued to plod away deep in that 10 to 15 feet, and we just kept plugging away, and we both got a few upgrades. And that's basically where I caught my whole bag for day one, was in that sort of 10 to 15 feet depth and flicking plastics, the hurricane sprat.
Okay.
And occasionally I threw a Z-Man grub out there when they were sitting a bit deeper. But the hurricane sprat did pretty much all the damage there on day one.
Okay. Which one was it, and what sort of jig head did you put in it?
The jig head was just the TT hidden weight, the 1/20th of an ounce.
Yep.
So they glide beautifully. You can throw them a long way with the breeze, and they sort of glide down nicely like a prawn. The colour, don't quote me, Deethy, it was sabre or cleaver. They're both green and they're both very similar. And one of them's a colour misprint, and I couldn't tell you which one it is, but it was cleaver or sabre. It was one of the dark green ones with a few black spots and flicks through it. But it looks just like a prawn.
Okay, and it was the 75, so the one with the forked tail?
Yeah, the 70 or 75. It's just got that flat tail and it just glides. Yeah, it's not the one with the curly tail.
Yeah, okay. And like you said, with the colour, yeah, there's a couple of colours that are very close. Now, in terms of technique, if you're fishing that sort of 10 to 15 foot, were you just letting it hit the bottom and then flicking it up, or how did that look?
Yeah, it was a little bit, I guess, unconventional in the way I was fishing them in water that deep. Generally, you'd sort of flick them in shallower water, sort of that 8 feet or less. But I knew the fish were eating them the day before from prefish, so I persisted and basically throw it out along as far as you can with the wind. And it took a fair while to get down. And we were marking fish right on the thermocline we could see on Pete's cylinder. So I was just targeting that sort of about 5 feet up from the bottom.
Yeah.
Where those fish were. And I needed to get it sort of in their eye line. So it didn't need to be on the bottom. And I just let it flutter down. And it takes quite a while. You've got to be patient. And once it's in the sort of zone, I'd give the rod tip a few sharp jerks, like a flick, just like a prawn would sort of flick up off the bottom.
Yeah.
And then the important thing with the sprats is you need to give them a belly in your line when they're sinking, and that means that they'll glide beautifully slowly towards you and down. They won't just spiral down on a slack line.
Okay.
So with those sprats, yeah, it's really important to just give them a nice belly and just let them glide.
Okay.
And that's when the fish will come up and whack them.
Right. Okay. And throughout the day, so you end up with a pretty decent bag. Did you drop anything that hurt you, or was there anything else that happened?
Not overly. I think I ended up catching about 8 or 9 or 10 fish for the day with a couple of upgrades, but I didn't really lose any bigger fish. I lost a few fish, but nothing big that really hurt me. So I was quite happy with my conversion rate at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, very good. And it looks like you might have been in second overnight. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it was second, or I think it was third, and then it got changed to second because the dude that was in second, something changed with his score later on. So,
okay.
Yeah, I was second overnight, and I think I was trailing by about 170 grams leading into day two.
Yeah, that's pretty tight. That's a great place to be.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the pack was really tight after day one for the nonnies. I think right down to about 20th position, there was only it was only something like 300 grams in it. So it was great to be sitting second, but in reality, I knew that anyone could come through with one kick of fish and come from right back from 20th. So, yeah, second was great, but I knew that the job was far from done.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right, mate, day two rolls around. Who'd you draw on day two, and how did that go for you?
So day two came round, and I was fishing with Nathan Booth, the young fella from up the coast, and I've met Boothie before. He's a great fella, and on the Saturday night, so after day one, we had a bit of a brainstorm together, and we came up with some ideas and some plans for what we wanted to do for day two.
Yeah.
Boothie hadn't fished Mallacoota a lot previously, so he was open to ideas from myself as to what we wanted to do. So we put our heads together and we said, let's go up to Top Lake in prefish. I'd seen a lot of big fish up there feeding shallow on the edges, and I just knew they wouldn't have gone far, even though that big southerly came through. And on the Sunday, we were meant to get pretty good weather. The nor'easter was meant to come back and the sun was going to come out. So we put some belief in the fact that those fish that had shut down the day before would come back onto those edges on the Sunday. So that's what we did. We shot straight up to Top Lake in the morning and we started fishing shallow straight away.
Yeah, okay. And Nathan, I think, I interviewed Nathan back in about November. So, yeah, and I think at that point he was in the non-boating side. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was in the non-boaters last year.
Yeah, that's right.
He put himself in the deep end this year. He's into the boaters now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was very cool. No, it was a great little interview. All right. So how did you catch your fish throughout the day?
Yeah, it was interesting. It sort of came and went in waves. First up, the tide was quite low in the morning and it didn't really suit that edge bite straight away. It was glass out and it was quite low tide, but we went for a quick burn up one of the arms just to see if we could see fish there. We went up the Double Creek arm and fished some silty beds and some tea trees and things like that. And we struggled to find fish there. They were the fish that we caught a lot of in prefish, and it wasn't disheartening, but it was sort of made us question, have we done the right thing? Are we in the right spot? Are we too early? Are we this? Are we that? But after those flats, we went over the other side of Top Lake, over the dead finish side, and we plugged away in about 2 metres off some rocky points that had previously had fish on them in prefish. We suspected the fish wouldn't have moved far, and we were right, really. After a few hours, we caught a few good fish in about 2 metres on some weed flats that were adjacent to the shallower sort of rubble flats. So it put the confidence back in us. By about 10 o'clock, we thought, no, look, I think we're doing the right thing, and the tide's coming up, and we could see schools of yellowfin moving up shallower.
Yeah.
So the confidence was lifting as the day went on. The breeze was slowly picking up, and the tide was coming up with it. And we trusted our guns, and we stuck at it. And by about 12:30, there was enough wind and tide on those shallow edges and on the flats up there. There was enough water there that we could fish it, and we were happy that the fish were up there. And so we got up onto the shallows in that wind, and we started smacking them in that last few hours. So that was great. Right.
And what were you throwing up there?
Up there, I was throwing the Hurricane Sprat again. Earlier on in the tide cycle, I was throwing it on a lighter jig head. It was the 1/40th PT hidden weight.
Okay.
Just fishing that sort of half a metre sort of depth. catching those fish, pushing up on those rocky edges, hard up against the bank, throwing the 140th there and basically just cast out hard up against the bank and give it 3 or 4 seconds to flutter down and give it a whip. It's almost like you're sort of ringing a bell, like you're shaking your rod and just flicking that prawn, flicking that sprat just like a prawn would, and then giving it a couple of seconds to sink and really up against that bank, you sort of just fish that first 5 metres and then crank it back in and then go again into the next likely looking spot.
Okay. All right. And how'd you go for fish numbers on the Sunday?
On the Sunday, I went a lot better than the Saturday. On the Sunday, I think I ended up boating about 12 or 13 fish. And over the course of the day, we got about 4 or 5 upgrades. So we got plenty of fish once that wind got up. It was tough. Before the wind was there and the tide was high, it was tough going. We didn't catch a lot of fish.
Yeah.
But, yeah, once the wind and the tide was high, we caught a lot more fish.
Yeah. And on the Saturday, you fished a little bit deeper and down in the main basin, from what I can understand. And then on the Sunday, you were fishing a little bit differently. Did it kind of mess with your head in the beginning of the day? You hadn't maybe caught the fish straight up?
Yeah, it didn't mess with my head too much. It certainly made me question whether we'd done the right thing at the right part of the tide. But I knew after pre-fish, and I fished Mallacoota a little bit before, and I was confident that the fish would be there. We knew they were in top lake. We knew they were going to feed shallow. It was just a matter of backing ourselves in and waiting for that wind and the tide to pick up. So
yeah,
it did play with my head a little bit, but I sort of just knew, I guess, from a little bit of experience down there fishing top lake, that the fish have to switch on in that the wind and the breeze. It's got to happen sooner or later. And luckily for us, we had a 3:20 finish on the Sunday, which was the last flight of the day. So
right,
we had the best chance of taking full advantage of that afternoon breeze and tide. Yeah, tough at times with the mind games, but I guess we backed ourselves in and we believed that we'd made the right decision, and it was just a matter of trusting the process.
Exactly. And look, hindsight will tell you that you did, because you got a better bag on the Sunday, just slightly, but nonetheless better. And yeah, no, it was a pretty great result. I was going to say, yeah, I'm looking at your scores. If you had replicated your bag from day one, you still would have won, but only just. But yeah, no, I think it was a great result.
Yeah, it was a great result, and it was great to fish with Boothie. He was the way he went about it was really good to me. He knew that I was a decent chance of placing in the event. Up at Top Lake, there's no service up there where we were fishing. We were over the back and we had no service all day, so we weren't checking the live scoreboard at all throughout the day, so we didn't know how we were going.
Yeah.
Not that I would have checked it really anyway. I just wanted to fish the way that I wanted to fish, and I believed the process, and I trusted what we could do, and I wouldn't have changed anything even if the scoreboard was dancing all over the place, or I was first or 10th or whatever it might have been. So yeah, it was a good result in the end. We finally got back into service on the way back in the bottom lake and had a quick look at the weights, and I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. I thought, oh yeah, I'm pretty happy with my bag.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, happens. I was happy with the way I fished, and I made the most of my opportunities up there, and I did the best I could have done. So
yeah,
luckily I had a quick look at the scoreboard, and I thought, oh yeah, this will go close, but I wasn't sure. There was still some decent bags caught that day, and yeah, luckily enough for me, it just worked out the way that it did.
Yeah, no, it worked out pretty good. I was going to say, Nathan's episode would have been released back in November, I think. So yeah, if anyone wants to go back and have a listen to that. All right, mate, a couple of things. So what sort of lines and leaders and stuff are you running for the weekend?
For the weekend, I kept it pretty simple. I ran 4 or 5 combos. The Hurricane Sprat here, which is what I threw most of the weekend, that was thrown on a 4-pound fluorocarbon line with a 6-pound PE 8-strand braid, 2 or 3 or 4 rod lengths of that fluorocarbon leader, just or an FG knot.
Yep.
And I'd throw that most of the weekend in the deeper water, and it wasn't until we were fishing those shallow edges at the end in the wind and the rock where it gets a bit gnarly and the fish fight pretty hard in there. So I cranked it up to a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader for the last couple of hours on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be a good decision because the fish up there pulled pretty hard.
Yeah, definitely. Did you lose any fish on the Sunday?
I lost one. I lost 2. I lost one on the last cast of the day. Our alarms were going off, telling us to get on the motor and get back to the ramp.
Yeah.
I lost one on the last cast, and one about an hour prior to that was pretty annoyed at myself that I lost because it would have been really good for the bag, but it didn't quite happen. But that's all right. I think I ended up pulling the hook on that fish.
Right. Ouch.
Yeah, the leader wasn't the problem there, but the 6-pound fluoro and the 6-pound braid did the job for that.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right, mate. I reckon that covers the fishing pretty well. So, mate, what do you get to take home for first place?
For first place, I got a nice decoration for the mantelpiece.
Very good.
And thanks to Daiwa, a big sponsor prize pack. So that had quite a lot of Daiwa hard body lures. There was fluorocarbon line in there. There was as many jig heads as I could ever use, and the new junky plastics. I think I've got about 3 years supply of them now, thanks to Daiwa. So, yeah, quite a generous prize pack for the non-boaters.
Yeah, no, that's great. And look, some of the Daiwa gear, the jig heads, there's 2 things I like about them. First of all, their bait keeping ability is awesome in terms of keeping your plastics on. But also they put them in those little bags, which are awesome as well. So you can just put a couple of bags in your pocket and you're good to go.
Yeah, the little Ziploc bags, they're good, aren't they? You can chuck, if you buy 3 or 4 packets of the same, you can just consolidate them into one and away you go.
Yeah, I did exactly. I put 2 into 1. Yeah.
Yeah, they're good like that. And the bait keepers are, well, they're outstanding, really. They're a lot better than anything I've used before. So hats off to Tom Slater and the Daiwa guys for coming up with that because they're brilliant. All we need now is just a few hidden weights for the sprats and away we go.
Oh, mate, they're on their way, I'm told. So
yeah, I hear a murmur on the breeze along the same lines, so that's pretty exciting.
Very good, very good. All right, mate. Before we head off, mate, is there anyone you would like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, there's a few people. Firstly, my boaters for the weekend, and also my boaters for the Gippsland round, which was only a few days prior to Mallacoota. So going back to Gippsland, I had Joe Darmody on day 1. He was great to fish with. He's an awesome guy, really generous with his time. He showed me a few techniques around fishing crabs and things like that, and he was really good to me, and I'm really grateful for his generosity.
Yeah.
And for day 2, I was lucky enough to be paired with Mario Vukic.
Oh, wow.
And I think a lot of people know how much of a character Mario is, and he was just awesome to fish with. He was great. He took me down to quite a few places in the deep, dark corners of Gippsland lakes where I'd never been before, and fished a variety of places and techniques that I'd never dream of doing. And he was really generous in showing me some things and showing me how to catch brim down there. So I'm really thankful for Mario's time.
Yeah.
And then at Mallacoota, obviously, Peter Brukel, jumping aboard his big, flash, new, speedy Bass Cat Puma was an experience, and just seeing the way he goes about using his electronics to find fish was great. And Pete, straight away, he said, look, Liam, come up the front of the boat, have a look at the sounder, you can see the fish, just cast where you want. You know, he wasn't worried about getting his bag first, or he didn't want me to be at the back of the boat. He was just really generous with all that. And I had a great day with Pete. He's a really good fella. So
Yes.
So thanks again to Pete, and of course Boothie for day 2, jumping in the little tinny with him and putting around up at Top Lake and getting crashed about in the wind and the waves for the last few hours there. We grounded out and we believed in ourselves and we got it done. So had a great day with Boothie. He also got his PB flathead in the morning. So he was really stoked with that, and it was a great fish that he landed on 3 pound. So well done to Boothie for that. So they're my boaters for the tournament, which I'm really thankful for, and I couldn't have asked for a better experience with those guys.
Yeah, cool.
Also, I'd like to thank Marlon Thompson. He'll probably cringe at this, but we fish a lot together, and we fish the Gippsland stuff together, and we put our heads together a lot of the time, and we try and work this species out as best we can. And he was great in prefish at Mallacoota, and I'm really thankful for him. And probably lastly, I'm lucky enough to be a part of a keen group of anglers from Canberra. They go by the name of Team Schmutzen. And those guys, we fish some tournaments together, and again, we put our heads together and help each other to catch more fish and basically have a great time fishing tournaments together. There was a few guys down there in the non-boaters that they're having their first ABT event that were fellow Schmutzens, and we all stayed together and had a great time. So, yeah, to the Schmutzen boys, yeah, this one's for us.
There you go, mate. That means you are the lead Schmutzen for this round.
That's right, Deethy. Certainly am, mate.
Very good, mate. All right, mate. Listen, I want to thank you for coming on, mate. Congratulations, and hopefully you get a couple more results for the back end of the year.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I'm looking forward to just working out whether I can do the Hawkesbury round or not, but I'm excited for that if I can. And then, yeah, obviously Lake Mac at the end of November, start of December. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. I have a great time at every ABT event. You always learn so much from the best brim fishers in the country, and, yeah, it's a great event and it's always a great time. So, looking forward to the next one.
Exactly. All right, mate. That's brilliant. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Deethy. Have a good night, mate. We'll see you later.
All right. Cheers. All right. If you're in the market for a new fishing kayak, or maybe looking to make some upgrades to your existing kayak, or possibly looking at kayak fishing tournaments, HWS is the place to go. They have a full range of Hobie kayaks, stock the latest accessories, and are really dialed in when it comes to the best kayak fishing setup for the casual fisher and the tournament angler. hws.com.au, online or in store at shop 3/638 Pacific Highway, Belmont. James will do free delivery on Hobie kayaks across all of Greater Sydney, Central Coast and Hunter. If you're outside those areas and you still want a delivery, give him a call, send him an email, get in touch with him, and he will help you out. Now, James has had a pretty good week in the last week or so. I'll let him elaborate on that. All I'm going to do is say that he's not getting much sleep at the moment. So great time to get in there and hit him up for a deal, because he probably won't be able to think properly through the lack of sleep. In any case, I jumped online to see what sort of jumps out at me this week, and I have a Hobie Lynx, which at the moment has been sent to Tasmania. But it's a great little unit when I just want to get out and I don't want all the drama of putting my PA14 360 XR thing in, which I love to bits. Definitely, if you're thinking of being really serious, jump on the 360s. Absolutely amazing. But that's not what I'm talking about now. The Hobie Lynx, it is just a light little unit. It's super stable. It's really quick off the mark and super responsive, turns on a dime. Look, it's a nice little fishing platform, especially if you think you're only going to be out for a couple of hours, take 1 or 2 rods and off your toddle and catch some fish. Anyway, jump online or go in and see James and maybe go for a test run. I think you'll be quite surprised. All right. So coming in third place in the boater division, dropping 5 fish for 5.225 on day 1, following it up on day 2 with 5 fish for 4.068, giving him a total of 10 fish for 9.293 kilos. I'd like to welcome back to the Bream Fishing Project the reigning ABT champion, Mr. Mark Crommo Compton. Welcome, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much for having me.
How good has it been, the reigning champion?
Yeah, I'll ride that wave for the rest of the year, won't I?
I reckon you would, mate. You got to do it.
Yep.
You got to do it. Oh, mate. So, mate, first comp of the season or second comp, you had a pretty good round.
Yeah, it was better than Gippsland, that's for sure. Yeah, I fell over a little bit at Gippsland. It threw myself. I'd never done what I did and launched somewhere else. And I won't be doing that mistake again. I bought the boat so that I can travel through any weather. And for some reason, I just thought the weather was going to be a little bit worse than it was, and should never have done that.
Okay. One to learn from, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the hard way. A good round to drop out of my AOY contention figures. I'll be dumping that one, hopefully.
Fair enough. Well, from having speaking to you beforehand, it looks like you're going to do a few rounds, so I'm sure that'll disappear.
Yeah, I'm doing every single one, mate. Every single one. Why not?
Well, there you go. How good's that? All right, mate. Let's get into it. Did you get down there for the pre-fish?
Yeah, we stopped in, and there was a few things that I definitely thought about the flood water that had previously gone through there, knowing what that place can be like and how much water can actually get in there from the hills and that sort of thing behind it. I knew there was going to be still a fair bit of murky water, and I think we've sort of learnt that now over the years. You might still find a couple of good fish up those reaches up the top and that sort of stuff, but your good numbers are always down along the fronts, your flats, your entryways, your cleaner water. I definitely think that the fish feel the same way. That cleaner, smoother, fresher water is better for them. They feel that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, that the water clarity and the water, I guess the dirtiness played into it a bit over the weekend.
100%. It always does, mate. It generally always does. I mean, it's one of those things. They're either after the dirty water or they're after the cleaner water. So I generally find myself pulling around the cleaner water or the areas where the water seems more habitable. Yeah, my game plan was definitely, I put the boat in, mate, pulled up, power pole down on a flat out the front and just started rigging another couple of rods, just taking in the morning. It was a nice fresh day, and instantly from the first 10 to 15 minutes of being just sitting and listening, you just picked out where the bait fish were, right? Like I was out there pretty much in the dark, but you just listen to it. You can hear the bait in the different areas, and the bait were definitely around on the flats. That was for sure. So as we went up through the river, I'm not doing too much casting. Truth be told, I don't do much on the pre-fish days. Got up into the upper reaches after seeing how dirty the water was, and the bait just wasn't there. You weren't experiencing the noises and the movements that you were getting closer down the front. So when you sort of look at water clarity, one thing, wind direction predicted, where the bait was, and the previous floods, it was always for me just down towards the front, down on the flats. The edge bite thing in Mallacoota has definitely dwindled over the years. I think that's a pretty solid factor now. I think that's something that we want to see come back, but don't think it will for quite a while. Like the entire ecosystem down here has shifted and changed in a massive way, and I think that growth on the edges, we won't see it back for quite a while. They need to sort themselves out outside. I had a good discussion with Chris Wright, actually. Well, a little bit of a good discussion, a little bit of trying to wrangle my 4-year-old, but yeah, he was sort of saying out off the banks out there, there's a bit of it's been nuked. Like they've been pretty hammered by the fires and the silt on the bottom. They've been hammered by the urchins out there. They've been really obliterated hard, and there's areas out there that are just ghost towns. And the habitat out wide is going to reflect the habitat inland as well. So until they get that habitat out there under wraps and sorted, you're not going to get that crustacean-y sort of stuff coming back to the edges too quick, I don't think. So the fish aren't going to be there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mate, one thing I had while you were speaking there with, when you talked about hearing the bait fish in the morning when it's dark, what does that lead you to think? Are you throwing surface, or you're throwing lightly weighted plastics, or where does that kind of trigger you?
All of it. Like, yeah, it definitely. I mean, you get on my boat, I've got 23 rods on there. All of them are 23. It might be 26 now, but you every single one of them I might have one or two rods rigged the same, but every single one of those others has got something different on it. So you'll run through those scenarios a little bit on prefish, but mostly you just get there on the day and see what goes on. You're chucking something that you're really confident in and you're not getting the bites, you change it up to surface. If you go to surface and you start to hear fish slurping around a little bit on the surface, you go to surface. Look, that's not rocket science. A lot of guys know that sort of thing. So you'll just sort of work through those scenarios and then sort of take it from there. If you've got dirty water and it's really murky, then you'll go with a hard body that might have a rattle or a bit of vibration to it or something like that. So everybody knows that sort of stuff, I guess, now. That's pretty fluent with how most people work that sort of, well, I think anyway, most people sort of work it out like that, but what I tend to do. So yeah, from the pre-fish day, I'd sort of just worked out a bit of a game plan of fishing it basically the same as I did in the grand final, which is just fish those flats where no one was, stay away from as many people as I could, look for the sandy, weedy edges. I'm not looking for anything more than weed. Weed is what I was chasing. I didn't find that I got a couple of good fish up on the islands and that, fishing the brains and all that sort of stuff, but the water was really low because we've had all that water, the rainwater, the tides haven't been able to push up because you're still getting a lot of run out, pushing back against it. So the water was really low, so you couldn't get the boat right up into the spot. So I like to fish on the island. So, yeah, I just stuck with that weedy stuff.
Fair enough. All right, let's get into comp day. Yeah, give us a bit of a rundown of how your day went, how you went about catching your fish.
Well, day one was a nice day, actually. I had John Albright. Anyway, John was on my boat with me, and we get on really good. He's a nice bloke. We were just enjoying the morning, And I said, mate, I'm just going to go down and fish a few flats early, and then I've got a couple of spots I want to try a little bit of surface and have a bit of a jolt around. And when you're fishing comfortably with someone and you're just chatting away about fishing and life and that sort of stuff, I just really relax and I just enjoy it. And he was chucking a surface in the morning. I was chucking my gyros and that sort of stuff. And I think I banged probably, I don't know, maybe 10. I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I probably banged about 5. I got my bag reasonably quick. I think it was 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Had a bag, and then John started throwing the surface around and getting some good follows. So I thought, I'll have a little go with that before we jolt around too much. And then got a couple of all right fish, and we sort of worked out a little bit more of an idea. I think I was throwing bent minnow at first, and then went across to an MMD. John was getting a couple of swirls on the MMD, and I thought, I don't really chuck those too much. I'll see if there's one there, because I like the little pop that he was getting off it, and I like that sort of action. And I thought that little pop was a little bit more triggering to the fish than just the action, because it was dirty water. So chucked on the MMD and give it a few good pumps, and that managed to get a couple of good fish. Then we swapped a few banks, went round to another bank and hooked another really good fish. The tide was sort of running out, so it was a bank that was at the start of, I always like to think that the big fish feed first. And if you think about that, what that tells you is if you've got an area the size of a football field, those bigger fish I always tend to find will be at the front of that. So where the tide's starting to flow across it. Sure. So I got to the front of that particular flat and just fished the front little weed edge and the roll up. It went from deep water to shallow, and yeah, sure as buggery, I got, I don't know what size it was, but a good fish, a good solid fish. And thought, okay, we're starting to put together an okay bag here. I probably had 4 kilos by then, and then thought, the tide's sort of starting to come up by 10:30, 11 o'clock. I think I'd sort of said, well, we'll go over and see if we can use a bit of that higher water over on the islands. Got a couple of fish on the islands, and then got a really good one out there. So that was a handy fish. That was all light plastics, that sort of thing. And then I think the end of the day, then we just rounded it up, going back around the milk run of Oh, no, I did. I went upriver and just sort of, I'll go and fish a couple of those deeper edges just to, I've got a bit of a milk run up there where I know there's good fish that holds there. I didn't see anyone else pre-fish those. Went and hit a couple of those, and I think I was using the JoJo's little micro mus or whatever he calls it, the pygmy.
Yeah, the blue lip one, pygmy.
Yeah, got a good fish up there. That was all right, and then worked it back down to the flats again. Mate, once I'm locked into those flats, it's hard to get me off them.
Yeah,
I always just feel confident if I'm on those flats banging fish and they're working how I want them to work. I just feel like I've got my competitor's number. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like I've got it on most there, and that's just a confidence factor. So I'll go and sit and do what I do and be patient with that. In saying that, I think I was saying to you before, I've got the confidence now to be able to shift and jolt about too. So it just worked at the end of the day. The wind had sort of come up a bit and those flats were working okay. So that kind of paid out.
Yeah, okay. And just before we move off that, did you get most of your fish on surface then, or did you then go back to cranks? Or?
No, mostly plastics, mate. I think probably three of the better fish did come on. So 3 in my bag would have come on surface. So I guess answering your question, what come in my bag would have been 3 on surface, 1 on a mussel, the other one would have been on a light plastic. But in saying that, those fish that went in my bag, I wouldn't work those out unless I sat there and started banging fish on plastics first.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have worked out to go and do those other items on the surface without having a confident, all right bag previously caught on plastic. So, yeah, I guess it's one of those things. Your day evolves, right? You can't just expect that you're just going to go there and just go and get 4.5, 5 kilos straight away. There's more to it than that. But
yeah,
that was my day one.
That was your day. Well, it was a good day. Yeah, over 5 kilos is good on any system. Where were you overnight?
Where was I overnight? So I was sitting in second.
You're in second. Yeah, I'm just looking through the thing. All right. Tell us about Sunday, mate. How'd Sunday go for you?
So Sunday wasn't as productive with numbers. I don't think I caught as many fish. I probably did still catch that 30-odd fish. It wasn't fishing as good as it had been. The surface wasn't working at all. I found surface had completely sort of shut for me, and I just sort of concentrated on those light plastics, and I don't think I caught really too much on anything else. I don't tend to find I wasn't throwing any chubbies or anything like that. I'm a bit against them down there. I tend to find that the noisier the lure that now, I think they're a bit hip to it. But, I mean, obviously I get proven wrong with that all the time. But
yeah,
I like the nice, silent, quiet approach. And I tend to find that some of those fish, you make no mistake, Mallacoota fish now are a spooky fish, I believe. They're getting hammered. Yeah. They're getting belted, mate. You go down to those boat ramps and those old boys, they're carving them up, mate. They are on the kill board. And it's upsetting, truth be told. Like, we went and pulled the boat out there one day and there was probably 6 or 7 lined up and 3 blokes already at the table. There would have been about 150 fish in there.
Wow.
You know, and that's only that bloody 15 minutes. So
that's right.
I don't like seeing that, but at the same time, yeah, I think the pressure down there is probably more immense than most systems in Australia at the moment. Mallacoota is just getting bashed. Yeah. Absolutely bashed. And it's not what you want to see. I like the idea of Morgo running the out-based events in Mallacoota, so at least they get back into their little zone straight away.
Yeah.
And they're not as harassed, but, mate, you're going to have a hard time stopping those old boys. We need to breed those old boys out, I tell you what, because they're just killing everything.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, over time, though, that sort of stuff has changed a little bit, but, yeah, I do take your point.
It definitely has changed, but it's one of those systems where you go down there and there's caravans down there. They're all in their 60s, 70s, 80s, mate. They've got a freezer.
Mm.
So I find it hard to watch sometimes, but I do enjoy seeing the old boys enjoying themselves. I do. Oh, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you can't be going away and just filling a freezer up and go and giving fish away when you get home.
Yeah, that's right.
Take people fishing. Don't go give fish away. Take people fishing.
Yep.
So anyway, that's my gripe.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. So, and with the Sunday, you said it was a bit of a tougher day. Was there any particular standout lure or anything you clued into?
Not apart from the Duro. Duro was still the one that worked the best.
And were you using a Duro or are they using a 5/8?
So I had the old, they're called the old American smash bait. Where Smash Bait originally got their smash bait from was an old American lure. So I've still got a stack of those. I was using those, and then I was using the beer bottle Duro, which I do a bit of colour changing to a little bit as well. And then I was using the Hurricanes. But most of the time, see, we didn't have a rocky bottom here. So the Hurricanes weren't working, I don't think, as well on that weedy, sandy bottom. Because with the Hurricane, I like to use a jig head. With the Duro, I'm getting it to sink sort of tail first a little bit more. But, yeah, I found that the bigger bite would come on the more subtle approach. But, yeah, mate, like I say, I think I've showed you my box of plastics when I say Duros. I've got a couple of hundred different styles of Duro.
That's why I asked. I had a couple of listeners ask about, they're like, what's a Duro? And I go, well, that's an interesting question because, at least from your interview, it has a different interpretation. So
it's definitely an evolution of a lure, but it's like saying, I guess, I don't know, like a bobcat. You got bobcat. You see any skid steer bloody bobcat thing now. It's called a bobcat, but it's there's heaps of different brands.
Yeah.
One of those things.
Oh, fair enough. All right. At the end of the day, you dropped another pretty handy bag on the scales on the Sunday, 4.068. Give you just enough to keep ahead of Brad Hodges on day 2.
Yeah, that was better, wasn't it? That should have been like that way 2 years ago at the grand final. I saw Hodgie after it. I actually, what Trippy told, I didn't say that to him, but I thought.
You thought it. Well, now if he listens, he'll know. So
how
good is that?
It's always good to have those goals that anytime you can beat Hodgie in Mallacoota, you've done bloody well because he's the man, right? So I hope he doesn't take that as there's no malice in what I say, that's for sure. It's completely respectful. So it couldn't be more respectful, truth be told. So
fair enough, mate. I'm sure he's got your number, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. They'll have guns blazing on me anytime I'm down Victoria for the rest of our days, hopefully. I love it.
Fair enough. All right, mate. So just one last question on the fishing. What sort of leaders and stuff were you running on the weekend? What sort of line classes?
Yeah, so 0.6 main line in the expedition. Just got a stack of new rods and reels from Dave and the guys at Daiwa. All 0.6 expedition is what I'm running. We are getting, the guys in the office are always sort of saying to me, just be careful because they say it does break at I think it's 8 pound. They say it'll break at that. And I don't know, I've still not busted one at the main line to test that theory, and I've given quite a few fish the curry. For me, it's more getting that long cast out is more important than that fight line. And I haven't been doing too much tight structure. Maybe going down to Taz, I might beef it up a bit to 0.8 or something like that. And
sure.
As a little bit of just in case. But then with leader, mate, I was only running 3 pound, just 3 pound J-thread finesse on pretty much all of my rods. I find the smaller the knot can be from mainline to leader, the better my distant casting is on the flats. That's more important than anything. Once I get those fish, I'll worry about getting them in the boat later. And when they're on the flats, they're not doing too much to you. They're just sort of going. You get a few that'll give you a good 50-metre run, but like, peel a bit of line off you, but they fight pretty fair. And at the end of the day, there's not too much around there that's going to do you, so I can lighten it up a bit. But that's what I sort of found. 2,500. What am I running? I've got the thing on one set. The 2,500 Arity reels. So I've been with those. Dave's trying to con me into the new Certate, so I might get a few of those going down into Tassie, but love the Arity. Arity's same weight and same proportions as this new Certate, but that's been a cracker of a reel. I love them. And, a couple of new rods. I was running the EXs in the new infeeds and the one in the 7.4, which is actually Morgo's new rod that Tom's built for him that is designed for his brim prawns. That's a bloody awesome flats rod. It really is. I might even say that may be more sensitive than the infeed that Tom built and designed for me for flats, the AGS. It might be more sensitive than that. I feel like in the hand it's a lighter rod, to be honest.
Yeah, okay.
But then outside of that, I went to the 7-foot 1 AGS. I think it's not AGS, sorry, the 7-foot 1 EX infeed EX. That one's, I think it was. Wait 1 second, I'll just double check. Won't take long. I'm right here at the boat. That one is the infeed, the LFS 712 LFS. That's been a really nice rod. The 7-foot 1 2 LFS.
Yeah,
so I was using that for quite a bit of the lighter sort of presentation sort of stuff. But in Mallacoota, they were the two main ones I was using.
Very good. One thing that did cross my mind is mate, just how many rods can your boat carry, mate? You're over 25.
I don't know. I haven't tested it. I think actually the other day I had all of Michael's rods, all of my rods, and we squeezed them all in. So he had probably 6 with him, and I had all mine, 24-odd rods in there. So I reckon we're pushing 30 rods on there. It's
all I'm picturing is this porcupine motoring across the seas, mate.
She fits them well, keeps them comfortable, nice and tight inside. So it's a good boat, mate. I bloody love it. I love it.
Oh, there you go, mate. All right, mate. You end up in third place. What'd you get to take home for third?
I think I took $1,500 actually, which is pretty bloody good considering I think the first event I won was maybe $2,000, maybe just under.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was $2,000, maybe $2,200. So to come away with third and take $1,500 and a Mercury bonus as well.
Oh, yeah, very nice.
I was pretty happy with that. So, a couple of fish. I did drop a really good fish that would have pushed me into second, definitely.
Wow.
But in saying that, I like to see Mario do well too, so I wouldn't want to take that away from him. But it would have been a nice finish had I landed that fish. But, is what it is.
Is what it is. All right, mate. I reckon that's a pretty good rundown. Before we head off, mate, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, the guys at Dyra have been great. They've been really good with supporting me with new products, new bits and pieces. The power pole gear I'm using now is second to none. I think everybody knows the price of the move is definitely something that'll stop people in their tracks a little bit, but when they look through that price, you realise what you're actually getting is probably a 3 or 4 times your electric motor that will cost you $7,000 anyway. So really, it's a good bit of kit. It really is. Yeah, Power Pole have been great to me, and my Lowrance gear, obviously, the guys are still on board for this year. I think after the grand final, they were. I don't think I've done anything wrong to annoy anyone. They're happy, and I'm happy with them. They're still great products, and the active target stuff. I'm running AT wide now. I don't know if you can see it. I've got dual transducers on my electric motor now, and AT wide gives basically 360, except for a little pizza shape at the back. So 360 full time live when you're using it as in scout mode. So I've That's as close as anybody's going to get to 360 live at the moment, and the little bit that you miss in the middle is just a bit under your boat. So it's impressive gear.
That is impressive, mate. You'd need a nuclear power plant on the deck just to run it, wouldn't you?
Well, the funny thing is, right, like, so I'm running 16s. I'm just running a single individual lithium 100 amp hour 12 volt cranking battery from Green Marine.
Right.
And that's what I run my entire boat with. That thing's never gone flat on me unless I was up at a Wonga fishing for 4 days straight with Sean on the last night when we really needed it, and it was because I hadn't charged the boat for 4 days. So the power pole charge kitted on this boat, mate, you do not need to charge it. It runs itself. And even if it's starting to draw power down, you can swap it. So if I've got power drawing down on my 12-volt cranking battery, I can draw power from my 36-volt electric motor battery and switch it across. So, I'm never left without power, and I need bugger all power to achieve it. So, I see boats now with 5 and 6 batteries. I've got 2.
Okay.
And I think I'm running probably more gear than most. So, anyway.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. All right. So I think does that cover all your sponsors? We've got PowerPole, Drywa, and Morantz.
Yeah. Obviously, Adam at fishing.com. I'm not sponsored by Adam, but I choose to help him, and he is appreciative of it. By when I need gear, he sends it to me straight away. I pay for everything I buy, but at the same time, I like to support Adam. He's a good friend, and I like to see the little guy. And I don't mean that physically, Adam. I don't mean you as a little guy. I just mean the little guy, in inverted commas, going well. As far as tackle shops go, I love to see Adam's shop going really well. So it's good to support him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, mate. That is a great rundown, mate. I want to thank you for coming on again. And, mate, we'll be watching to see how you go in Tassie.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'll probably try and do a few more little snippet videos and things like that. I had a really good time doing that a few years back, and I like the comments coming in from everybody. If we're going somewhere, travelling from bits and pieces, you get a comment from someone to drop in and go and see something else. I found some really good scotch and some really good beer and some really good fruit down there by doing that. Yeah, anybody that's got any ideas about places we should go and have a look at, please drop that through in the comments on any of our posts. So I'll try and give it a good rundown this year.
Sounds like a good plan. All right, mate. Thanks again. And, mate, hopefully we talk to you again soon.
Easy. Thanks for having me on, mate. Cheers.
Okay, so on the line, I have with me an angler that dropped 5 fish on the Saturday for 4.89 kilos, 5 fish on the Sunday for 4.462 kilos, giving him a total weight of 10 fish for 9.352. I'd like to welcome back to the Bream Fishing Project, Mr. Mario Vukic. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, Andrew.
Mate, it's good to have you back on the show so soon.
Yeah. Look, first was the Vic Bream and now the ABT, but I keep coming back a second. So I've got to win one of these things.
Well, mate, you're off to Tassie, I'm sure.
Yeah. Look, I'll be trying, that's for sure.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Mind you, I don't know about you. If someone offered me second place at the start of the comp, I'd take it every time.
Yeah, I would have too.
Fair enough. All right. So, look, based on the bag weights, it looks like you had a pretty nice couple of days down there. Maybe we'll start with your pre-fish there. Did you get out to have a fish on the Friday?
Yeah, I did. I took John Parkinson from Hawk's Nest in New South Wales with me, and I had a bit of a plan because I stayed over Christmas with the family at Mallacoota, so I thought I had a good fish there, more social fishing, gentleman's hours and stuff like that, since I was on holidays, but I sort of had a bit of an idea how it went. I knew that the water quality wasn't great.
Yeah.
And that then the fish was sort of concentrated in the bottom lake. So I just wanted to check that out again. And when I went there, the water had definitely improved. It was like 3 weeks later. So they didn't have the rains and the water had improved a lot.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so then I sort of went to a place where it was actually a deeper spot, like 8 to 12 foot, where I probably caught the better fish over Christmas, and that wasn't happening. So I thought, all right, I'm just going to go and fish all my favourite spots, whether to catch them there or rule them out. So I fished the narrows and into if you bank here and a bank there in the top lake, and then on the rock walls all the way up to past Cape Horn, and I was catching nothing. Really, and when I say nothing, I mean nothing. I didn't catch a bream. So I thought, well, they were all on the bottom lake over Christmas. I'm just going to concentrate on the bottom lake. And it was about 10 o'clock. Or 10 o'clock, I thought, right, I'm just going to go to the bottom lake and just grind it out there and see if I can find something there. So I went to another edge that we caught a couple of small fish there. And then it started to get a bit blowy and the sun was shining, and I just started tracking an edge and I just spooked the fish off. Just one fish. I thought, I might just have a look at the edge. Just sandy edges with a bit of weed and rock and stuff like that, but mainly just white, yellow sandy things. And I noticed the grey plumes were back. Noticed mudding fish. And I hadn't seen that there for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And back in the day when I first started this, that's how the bigger fish used to get caught in the bottom lake mudding. And so I come up to this grey plume, and my eyes aren't great, so it didn't matter. I just threw it at every grey plume, and the first grey plume I threw at, a yellowfin about 35 fork, just turned around and just grabbed the lure. It was a hurricane sprat on a 28th, and he just annihilated it. And I got it in. I said, okay, well, I love doing that. That's what I'm going to do. But then I had to sort of have a bit of a backup plan. So I only caught the one fish, and then I had a look at a couple of other edges that looked similar, and there was grey plumes on them. So I thought, righto, that's what I'm going to start doing. Hopefully it works. And then I went and fished the back of the Goodwin Sands in the deep, and in How Bite in the deep. And I sort of caught about 6 fish for me and my non-boater for the day, only about 6 fish. And the 35 fork was a good one, but everything else was about 28 to 32 fork.
Yeah.
So it wasn't great, but I sort of had a bit of confidence, to be honest with you. And in How Bite, there was this Beto there, and he pulled in this beautiful big bream, big black thing, kept it, of course, but I just knew that I had a look on the live, on the Garmin live, and I could see fish swimming around. I thought, righto, that's it. And by like 1 o'clock, I was in. I'd formulated what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then competition day comes around. So how did your plans play out? Did it fish the way you expected?
Okay. Well, competition day, I had a late slot. I was off 40th. Yep. So the edge that I wanted to fish first up, where I got the 35 fork and the prefish, I went there and there was 2 boats on it. All right, I'll come back to that one, hopefully. And then I went to the next edge that I checked out with the grey plumes. Another 2 boats are on that. There's 67 boats or something.
Yeah.
And the fish were concentrated in the bottom lake. So of the 67, I reckon 50 of them were in the bottom lake.
Yep.
And so then I went and did an edge that I lasted about 15 minutes, me and my non-boater, Matt Perry. And I just looked at him. I said, I'm not feeling it here. He said, yeah, no worries. And I said, I'm just going to go to a spot that I like to fish. It's a weed edge. I'm going to fish the same sprat, but more along a weed line instead of grey plumes. And we went there, but the weed had died in the system. There wasn't much weed. So when I got there, I thought, it didn't look familiar. But I noticed that the weed had gone. But right up in the shallows, we were hearing brim kissing and swirling and stuff going on. So he was fishing a surface lure, and I still had the hurricane sprat. And he threw the surface lure out, and he wasn't catching them, but all these swirls started happening. I thought, all right, I'm not going to fish the weed edge anymore. I'm going to throw right up into the shallow. I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
I started putting together a few fish. So I caught, I think, 5 there, and one of them was like a 35 fork. So I was really, really happy with that one. It was a black 35 fork, and my non-boater caught his bag as well.
Yeah.
So we thought, let's do the drift again, and we tried to go over it again, and it was dead, nothing. So I thought, okay. So, but I've got 5. You get a bit of confidence from that, Andrew, don't you, when you get your bag early?
Oh, mate. So it makes the day so much better. Like you're not chasing all day. You're going, all right, now how do I get the big ones?
Yeah. And I don't really like looking at the app because it's all live. But not early. Early, I'd rather, I always say, I'll have a look at the app at about 11 and see what's going on. So, but I had one quality fish in there, and then actually a friend of mine lost his battery. So I thought I had to go and give him a hand. So I spent about 20 minutes. Luckily, I had a battery pack, so I ended up giving him, and I said, you fish the rest, you keep the battery pack, fish the rest of the day. But then on the way back to an edge where I wanted to go, I looked over and there was another edge there that was similar and no one on it. I thought, okay, I'm going there.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes into doing that edge, my non-boater who was throwing surface bent minnow, there was this big yellowfin bream that was going, just tracking the bank in about a foot of water, and I threw the sprat, and it was the world's worst cast. Didn't even go near it. And I said to me non-boater, you have a throw at it with the bent minnow, and he threw it to about a foot behind him, actually, and he heard it splash. He just turned around and annihilated it. I couldn't believe it. I thought, my God, he was just wrapped. He thought, how good's this? And it was like a 36 fork.
Yep.
But it proved to me that yesterday wasn't a fluke where I got that one on and they were actually going to eat on the edge doing that sort of sight fishing, grey plume type thing.
Yeah.
So I got a nicer one off that edge as well. And then there was an edge basically 2 minutes away, and I said, oh, well, we'll go there. There's no one on that one. And we just started picking up a bit better quality fish, just side casting them, really. And he got his bag. He improved his bag, and I think I improved to, I think I had a 35, a 34, and maybe a 35 and a half or something like that.
Yeah.
And then 2 smaller fish, like smaller ones are 32s, so they're not real small, but they're smaller than what I had.
Yeah.
And then it was a real drizzly day, calm as calm, and they reckoned at about 9 o'clock the wind was going to come up, and it never came up.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was just drizzled all day. So then I thought, righto, I checked this deep spot where it was about 10:30. I had a look on the app, and I'm sort of in the top 10, but down the lower end. I think I was in like 9th or 8th or something like that. So I knew it wasn't easy. They weren't absolutely poling them in. So I thought, I need another couple of good fish, and I'm going to try the deep because it was so calm. And like a lot of those edges by 10 o'clock, they'd been flogged out. There was boats zinging around everywhere. And anyway, so I pulled up to this spot where the Beto was, and there was a couple of other guys fishing the deep, and I threw me sounder or me electric in with the Garmin Live, and I was seeing fish straight away. And I said to me non-boater, we need to just work this together. We'll just try and crack a pattern. I'm going to throw bloodworm in the BioTough in bloodworm, the sort of 100 mil things, wriggler patterns, and you throw motor oil, G-Man grub.
Okay.
Both for the 16th, and he went bang bang, 2 fish in a row, and I think 31 and a 31 and a half, which was good for improved his bag. Yeah. So I put the motor oils on, and I cast out, and there was when you get those sort of loops in your reel, and I was going trying to get this loop out of my reel, and I'm just sort of half got it out, and I just felt tick. The thing was just lying on the ground, and I struck, and it was a fish. It wasn't in my bag, but I sort of thought, what's going on here? So I cast out again and just left it. And then after like 30 seconds, tick, 36 fork. Like, wow. Yeah, that was nice. And then all we were doing was throwing it in there and leaving it. And then after, between 15 and 30 seconds, tick. Anyway, it just went crazy. We probably caught 10 fish each, and then I got a 36 and a half fork as well.
Wow.
And I'm going, we're going to go good here. We're going to go real good. But then the wind just came up and it changed direction and they just turned off immediately. Everything just stopped. Nothing.
Yep.
It's just a change in condition. Have you seen that before, Andrew? Where just a subtle change in conditions turns them off.
Yeah, and it's all over. And you go, what happened?
All over. Yeah, we were fishing for blacks at that stage, so they were all black. So on the edge, I forgot to mention, most of those were yellows. But back in the day, those mudding fish were always blacks. But now the big yellows are mudding on the edge as well. But anyway, the deep fish were all blacks.
Yeah.
And so we ratted around the deep for a bit longer, and I had about half an hour to go before the end of the day.
Mm.
And I just drifted out a bit deeper, and I just sort of got on the petrol engine and went about half a K, and I was like in 15, 16 foot, and I started seeing a few on the sounder, and I just threw, we were throwing again, but it was a bit windy, so we put 12ths on, and I caught one and my non-boater caught one, but they weren't in our bag, but I just remembered it and I marked it on the sounder, and it ended up being fantastic for day 2, and that was me day 1, and I was really happy with that, like really happy.
Yeah, mate, nearly a kilo of fish. It's a good result on any system. So.
Yeah, and then so I was in 3rd spot, and I was wrapped, but you saw the weights between like 2nd and 12th was really close. Maybe it would have been about half a kilo between it. So if you didn't get them on day 2, you could have dropped the 20th really easy.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I think for all accounts, the Sunday was a bit of a different day. How did it play out for you?
Yeah, Sunday was so I was off 3rd this time. So I had the pick of the edges.
Yep.
And I thought, but it was windy. It was totally different. Instead of a drizzly, it was sort of windy with sunshine.
Okay.
I thought, well, do I hit the edge that I wanted to hit? And one of the edges that I wanted to hit, I lost a real big one there the day before, and I thought, nah, I'll wait to the same stage of the tide before I hit it.
Yeah.
So I thought, what? I'm going to do exactly what I did, just in the exact same order. So I went down and I went to that edge where I got the 5, nothing, not a fish.
Yep.
All right. So I thought, well, okay, we're just going to go and have a look in real shallow at these mudding fish. But because the wind was blowing on a lot of these edges, it started to milk up. Like the edges were discoloured, so I couldn't see any mud. So we're just blind casting, but they were still there. So I think I got a 33.5 and a 34, which I was pretty happy with because I sort of hit the panic button, Andrew, and had a look at the app to see if anyone was catching them, and they weren't catching them.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're all really calm, so you looked at the app to just see if you could wind yourself up a bit.
No. I just wanted to see if everyone else was struggling like me, and they were. So I just knew that it was head down and grind, and hopefully we come up with something. So, yeah, I got a bag, but I had like a 28s and 31 and a 32 and that sort of quality, which I needed to kick out. I was happy with the 34, and I would have loved to kick the 33.5 out, but I actually didn't. That was my smallest fish on the day.
Yeah.
So I went to go to the edge where I wanted to fish, and there was someone on it, and it was all righto. And then I said, I'll come back and have a go. And then I thought, things have changed a bit. I might just go to 2 spots I never did. So I went up the Narrows, the top of the Narrows, and fished in there and caught nothing. And I went into Double Creek and fished an edge there and caught nothing. So I'd probably done an hour there.
Yeah.
I thought, righto, time for the deep spot, Andrew. It served me well yesterday. Hopefully it serves me well today. And I went there and there wasn't a boat near there.
Okay.
And I went there, I threw the electric in and the live started, and I'm searching around. There's nothing there.
Oh.
And I'm in like 8 to 12 foot and I'm casting away and we're catching nothing.
Yep.
I thought, okay, I'm going to have to go and find it. And remember I said that the day before, right at the end, in 15, 16 foot, I caught a fish?
Yep.
I went there.
Okay.
I went there and I put the electric in about 16 foot, and I had a look at the live and I started seeing fish.
Right.
So we did the drift, and my non-boater caught an upgrade, and right at the end of the drift, it wasn't the same whereby, because it was a lot windier, where you could just throw your lure in and leave it there. Plus, we weren't in 8 or 10 foot, we were in 16 foot. So
yeah,
I was still throwing a 16th, and my non-boater was throwing an 8th. And I threw a 16th, and I just felt the tick and went into it, 35 fork black.
Nice.
Thought, new beauty. Hopefully I can sort of double it up or try and get a few upgrades there. The very next cast, another 35.
Nice.
And I've gone, right, new beauty, let's go back and do that drift again. And we did. And I got another 35. They were all blacks. They were all similar. And then I thought, righto, so I've got 3 35s, a 34 and a 33 and a half. I said, if I can kick the 33 and a half out, I'm going to be keeping the top 3, which I needed to do. And I had a look at the app and they weren't smacking them. So I thought 4.5 and above was going to keep me up there. So I did the drift and I just couldn't get anything big, like nothing big. And so I thought, well, I'm going to fish similar deep spot for the last sort of hour and a half. So I went to the back of the Goodwin Sands and they were all yellowfin at the back of the Goodwin Sands, and I threw in and I hooked a nice one too.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but I pulled the hooks halfway through the fight. I thought, oh, well. And then I just caught like 31s and 32s, and that was my day.
And that was your day.
Yeah.
That's a great and interesting day in terms of you went through a whole lot of stuff to work out what they were doing, and it was just one key moment at the end of day one that sort of made a difference for you.
It was. If I hadn't caught that fish, there's no way I would have caught those 335s. No way. And and also just experimenting the day before with motor oil, because I tried 4 or 5 different patterns and colours and stuff like that, and motor oil just, I don't know why they eat that, Andrew. I still haven't worked it out.
Yeah, me neither.
I just sort of kept good contact in my surroundings and senses and just listened to what the fish were telling us, basically. It was good.
Yeah, no, it's very good. One thing that I was curious to hear your thoughts on, like with the changing conditions on day 2 where you got a little bit more wind and what have you on the water, like I would have thought the fish would have moved into the shallows, but it appears to have not been the case.
The shallows I was fishing were milky. The quality of the water wasn't great. I think that's what I put it down to. The edge that I wanted to fish, I went back again, and Steve Morgan was on it. He was poling them in on it. And that's what happens. You think you're not the only one that knows what they want. He's too good a fisherman, and he found them too. And he worked it out, and he was catching them good. And I just said, that's his. He won the spot. He won the race. He's got it. I'll have to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a really cool rundown, especially I like the fact that you found them shallow, ended up deep and mix it up throughout the comp. One thing with the hurricane sprat, when you were casting into the shallows, was it how were you fishing it? Was it a rip pause, or was it just, did you get back? How'd it look?
No, I'll tell you what it was. So I was fishing 3-pound leader, about 3 rod lengths.
Right.
With a 1/28th when it was calm and 1/20th in the colour the gun, the forktail sprat.
Yeah, the 75,
75, I was throwing that, and then every now and then I'd also throw the old style fire bait and the new Daiwa flick, whatever it's called. You know, the new Daiwa one?
Yeah.
Actually, one of my good fish came on the Daiwa one. Only reason I threw that is because it's a bit smaller. And I just thought it's calm, and they've seen the sprat a few times because we've done the edge a couple of times. So what I was doing basically is seeing the grey round plume and just casting it right into the middle of it and just letting it waft down. If I didn't feel anything, just twitch it once, let it drop down, and then wind it in. And then cast it again. On one of them, I put in a cast. I thought it was cast of the year. No, he wouldn't eat it. I saw him, he wouldn't eat it because we were watching him roll. And on the second cast, I put it about 6 inches right in front of him, a bit to the left. And for some reason, he wanted it then, and he just went clunk and hit it there, just on the first drop.
Crazy.
Yeah, he wanted it in front of him for some reason, not over the top of him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all I was doing. And on 3 pound, I mean, there's a few rocks and weed and stuff like that, but the yellowfin sort of run a lot parallel to the edge and then run out into the deep. So I was pretty confident I wasn't going to get busted off too bad.
Yeah.
And really only lost one fish, and I pulled the hooks at the boat on a really, really good yellowfin on day one. But that was the technique both days, really. Even in the milky water, I'd just throw it in, twitch it a couple of times, and wind it in. Just hit it, one after the other like that.
Yeah, I had a look at the colour of the gun because I didn't know what that was. So it's basically like a light colour with a two-tone colour, so it's like a whitish or yellowy white on the bottom.
Yeah, it's like translucent underneath and sort of like a greeny yellowy on top. It's sort of a naturally type colour. And, yeah, it's amazing. I'm fishing the edge with that and then in the deep with motor oil. Couldn't be two different lures. One's as bright as anything and the other one's translucent.
Yeah, you can't work it out. You
No.
just got to roll with it.
No.
Oh, mate, that's a pretty good rundown. I found that account was pretty fascinating. All right. I think in terms of lines and leaders, they use mostly 3 pound leader for the comp, or is that how that rolled?
No, not really. I used 3 on the edge and 4 in the deep because in the deep there's a million flathead, to be honest. You know Mallacoota as well as everyone. You're always catching flathead. So you're just always retying. And just in case I missed a little nick or something, I just wanted a bit more insurance. Plus the water wasn't super clear in the deep. So I went 4 pound in the deep and 3 pound on the edge.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Is there anything else we should cover before we move off the fishing?
Not really. I really do want to thank, and I hope a lot of people do this, I want to thank me non-boaters because we work together and if I said, they help me heaps, like the guy that fished, I said, you fish motor oil, I'll fish this. If I had just shut him out down the back, both the non-boaters when I'm fishing deeper up the front with me. We're working together.
Yeah.
You know, we're working together. So, yeah, I want to thank them both. They listened and, you know, I think they both top 10, which is great. So, it was good to work in tandem with them. They certainly helped me and I hope I helped them too.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to be if you can. Certainly if you can, 2 people casting different things, you're going to work stuff out twice as fast. So that's a pretty good deal.
The people are scared that their non-boater is going to take their fish away from them. But I never think like that. I always think that how can they help me and I will help them and we can both have a good day. It's not just me that has to have a good day.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great attitude and it certainly it must make for a better feeling on the boat as well.
Yeah, great atmosphere on the boat. I like that. And actually in Gippy the day before I had a spare and I hate having a spare. And that night someone broke down and Nicole from the ABT rang me and said, oh, can you do me a favour? I said, yeah, what do you want? She goes, I've rung 2 people who have got a spare and they don't want to have this guy at such and such as bloke. Do you mind taking him? I said, yep, I'd rather him. Send him my way.
Yep, beautiful. Yeah, that's a win-win. Very good. All right, mate, second place, what'd you get to take home?
I got $2,500 plus I was the first place Mercury engine, so I get an extra $250, so $2,750, which is fantastic to be honest with you.
Oh, exactly. That is a great way to kick off your season. All right, mate. I think that's a great rundown. So before we head off, is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, look, what was it? Nearly 70 boats. I mean, the whole ABT thing, and it's just growing. It's really the top echelon of fishing. I mean, you're fishing individually, and it's just getting, especially in Victoria, the New South Wales guys and the Queensland guys. That's who I want to thank for coming down and to fish our waterway. It's a bit easier for them to come down and fish for kilo fish than for us to go up to the Tweed and catch 300 grammers. But it's a long way, Andrew, what it's like in the kayaks. You're travelling all up and down the eastern seaboard. It is a long way. So I just want to thank them for coming down and experiencing the best of Victorian fishing.
Yeah, mate, it's good. And I think you're right. It does feel like not just the ABT, but all the comps are growing.
Yeah.
We're just getting a few more each round and they're getting bigger and better.
Yep, definitely happening with the Vic Bream and definitely with the kayaks as well.
Oh, exactly. And I think, for anyone that's out there sitting on the fence, definitely the ABT. I think there was maybe five extra spots in the non-boaters. It's a really easy way to come in and fish around with some potentially top-ranked Bream anglers. So, definitely get on it.
That's it.
Very good. All right, mate. That is absolutely brilliant, mate. I appreciate you coming on and good luck in Tassie and maybe we'll get to talk to you after that.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
All right. Cheers, mate. All right. So coming in first place, dropping a huge bag of 5 fish for 6.077 kilos, backing it up on the Sunday with 5 fish for 5.516, giving him a total of 11.593. I'd like to welcome back to the show for the second time in a row, Mr. Mark Healy. Welcome back, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me back.
No worries at all. Now, we were talking just before we started because just the difference in the win here, like this is a massive, massive win. So you got 2.241 kilos above second place.
Yeah, it's obviously you don't know when you're fishing, when you're on the water, like we were speaking about earlier, you don't really know. And I don't even know a lot of the time you can look at the app and see, but I tend not to look at it. So I put my weights in through the app, but I'm not looking at the results through the website. I deliberately don't look at the results because I don't. What I'm really focusing on is my time on the water, my decision making, and I don't want it to be influenced by seeing other people catching fish or not catching fish or whatever it might be. And I just think to have my time on the water and decision making needs to be my own, and I don't want to be one of these guys that looks on there and goes, oh, so-and-so's got a good bag, we'll go and try and drop in on him or fish those areas.
Yeah.
I tend not to look at the results at all. Just put your weights into the app and whatever it is. And to be honest, I don't have time for that. I'm just too busy trying to fish and catch the biggest 5 fish I can each day.
Yeah, mate, I'm probably right there with you. I wouldn't say I'm a super anxious guy, but the times where I have done app-based events and you see you winning and then you see someone else winning, it starts to wind you up. So I tend to, same deal, just put the weights in and move on.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to go. And that way you're sort of not focused on other people's game. It forces you just to make your own decisions and just focus on your game plan and what you're doing. Yeah,
exactly. All right. Let's get into it down here. Now, this was the second of the doubleheader down there, and you had, did you go out and have a pre-fish on the Friday, it must have been?
Yeah, I did. I went down and obviously coming back off the back of Gippy there, just went out on pre-fish day, and I've had some mixed fish Mallacoota quite a bit in the past and had some, I guess, respectable results, but never really hit them on the head. And this year particularly, I wanted to really focus on targeting big yellowfin because that's what I am accustomed to. That's what I do at home. I know how to catch those fish. So I knew if I could find them that I'd likely be able to work out a way how to catch them. So I really, really focused on areas towards the entrance and the bottom lake that would be typically conducive to more yellowfin than black brim. And again, similar to Gippsland's, that Mallacoota had quite a lot of rain leading up to the event, so that did dirty the system up. So knowing how these coastal systems work after an influx of rain, quite often you can get an aggregation of fish that move in with that tide towards the mouth of the system. So, yeah, I started in the bottom lake, just hitting a few edges that I had fished the year previously and caught good fish on surface. And one of the things I noticed, Andrew, is, and I think it was due to the floods at Mallacoota over Christmas, but some of the weed beds and areas where it had sort of cockleweed and growth previously was barren. It was gone. There was just like silt there. And I think the flood waters had damaged and killed a lot of that seagrass off. So first few areas that I fished weren't very successful at all. So after a couple of hours, I sort of thought, I'll go and have a look right down the front of the system. I'd never been right down to the front. I'd sort of had to play around the islands and towards the front, I guess, but never been right down to the entrance of the system. So it was more just a bit of a go for a drive and have a look. And I got down there and the tide was coming in and it was nice blue water, and I was like, oh, geez, this looks like home.
Yeah.
I started having a bit of a flick around and I just pulled up to this one edge, and it was just all it was a sand edge, I guess, or a bit of a gutter running off the back of the entrance. And I threw in, and first cast, I caught a fish on a crankbait, and I was like, oh, that's all right. He's not a bad fish. It was like 34 to the fork. I was like, yeah, that's pretty good fish.
Yeah.
And then I followed up with 4 more casts and caught 4 more fish. And so I caught a bag in 5 casts, and I was like, well, okay, I've got a spot to start tomorrow at the least.
Yeah.
Yes. I sort of stayed there for a while. I didn't fish a lot. I just sort of observed what the water was doing. And one thing I did do is, because I caught those fish on crankbaits, and so I waited till the tide was a little bit later, and then I changed to a different lure to see if I would catch bigger fish or more fish or whatever it might be, and which was a blade, because the water was running quite hard by then, and sort of I was thinking the fish might have dropped back into this gutter, and I needed to cut that water, get to the bottom of that flow where I knew the fish would be holding, and that seemed to work. And I caught another 2 fish in 2 casts on that, and I was like, well,
right,
that's good, because it's not just the one lure and the one retrieve or the one style that's going to catch me fish here. I should be able to fish this throughout the tide. So probably spent an hour or 2 in that area. And then I guess I left it knowing that I was going to be more than likely going back there for my starting location on the first day. And didn't catch any huge fish. I think I might have got a 35 or 36 fork, being probably the largest fish. And then most of the fish were sort of like low 30s. So good bag fillers, but not monsters. But didn't really sit there and pump them either. Didn't want to burn too many fish for the upcoming next 2 days on the water. So as far as the pre-fish goes, like I sort of moved around and fished and went up the top lake and right at the back of the bottom lake and sort of had a good look around. I was more sort of looking around, and I wanted to catch fish on surface. I raised a few fish. They weren't real big, but it just wasn't really appealing to me. I did move on to sort of Goodwin Sands a bit later, and I got a couple of decent fish in that sort of mid-30 range. I was like, righto, well, if it doesn't work down the front, or later on, if that bite dies down the front, I can come back up here and possibly scrape a couple together as well. So that was kind of the extent of my pre-fish day. I wasn't on the water too late. I was quite happy with what I found, and I knew I had 2 more tournament days coming up, so I just wanted to get off the water and prepped for day 1 at Coota.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And look, coming off the back of the success at the Gippsland, did that play into your headspace at all? Like, was that a good thing, or did it create more pressure or less pressure? Or
well, it probably created less pressure in regards that I've already had a good result down here, and I didn't need to, I guess, do anything wild to get a good result. I already achieved that. So in regards to that, like, there was probably a little bit less pressure. But in saying that too, like, I just, that event's over. It's gone. It's last week's, you know what I mean? So I just put it out of my head, and this is a new event. It's a new arena. You're fishing differently here. The fish respond differently. It's much, much different to the areas that I was fishing at Gippsland. So as good as it was to know that I was coming in off a good result and there was no pressure, I wasn't really thinking about it too much, to be honest. I was sort of just focusing on the next job at hand.
Yeah, very cool. All right, let's run into day one. Tell us, did you end up starting down the front and how'd it go?
Yeah, I did. I guess something to note, a good mate of mine lives in Victoria. He was sort of, I noticed he was sort of fishing the similar areas down towards the Seaway on pre-fish day. So I caught up with him at the briefing and said, hey, I'm guessing based on what I've seen today, I think we're going to be fishing pretty close tomorrow, and had that conversation, which is good to know that you can have these conversations with fellow anglers and have a gentleman's arrangement in that regard. And we spoke about it, and he was actually starting well in front of me, which was fine. And he was going to start where he'd caught fish on pre-fish day, and I said, listen, I'm just going to go to where I caught fish. I pulled up and caught 5 fish in 5 casts yesterday. I'm just going to go there and start anyway, and we'll see what happens. He's like, yeah, no, I'll see you down there, man. It's all cool. By the time I did go down there to start on day one, and by the time I got there, Cam Whittam, who I'm referring to, he was actually down there already, and he actually had 2 fish boated. So he had caught 2 fish and weighed them on the app or measured them and put them on the app by the time I actually pulled up. So that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to be fishing, not far from a really good mate of mine, and also to know that, okay, the fish are on the tube because Cam's got 2 already and I've only pulled up. So they're here, they're on the tube, it's going to happen. So, yeah, I think pretty much got a bag in the first, if it wasn't 5 minutes, it would have been 10 minutes.
Wow.
Which was pretty good. It was pretty exciting, especially coming off the back of the Gippsland event where I fished all that first day for 6 bites and the second day for 8 bites over the 2 tournament days. And I probably got that many fish in the first 10 or 15 minutes of day one at Coota. So it was very different. It was very contrasting, where I was probably catching more numbers. I was definitely catching more numbers at Coota and relying on volume of fish for that bigger overall bag weights than I was at Gippsland's, knowing that, yes, I'm on good fish, but I'm only going to get a very limited amount of bites, and I need to sort of, I guess, stick or make sure every fish I hook lands. So it was a very different approach in that regard. But, yeah, it wasn't long and I had a bag, and I was into upgrade territory, which is a pretty cool feeling when you're only 15 minutes into an event and you've got a bag, and it's just a matter of getting bigger ones from now.
Exactly. I mean, in my tournament career, I'm actually hoping to have that feeling at some point.
It doesn't happen often. It does not happen very often, but when it does, it's a very good feeling.
It's pretty good. I mean, as you know, in the kayaks, we fish for 3 fish, but for you to get 5 fish in that short period of time, straight off the bat,
and I think
awesome.
It's all about timing, and fish move through, and they're certainly moving through in these areas, and it wasn't consistent throughout the whole time I was fishing these areas. That they'd certainly come in ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
But when the fish were there, you really needed to capitalise. You needed to keep your lure in the water.
Yeah.
Because they might only bite for 5 minutes.
Right.
You might have a 10, 15-minute window. And you need to capitalise and make the most of that window, that opportunity that you're given that you can.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of that, at least that first part of the day. What were you getting them on? Did you go the blade, or did you go for a crankbait? Or
so the water was up quite high on that first day, and it was sort of just washing over the back of that sand and into that gutter, and I just went straight for the crankbait. And what more reliable lure to go to than the one that won me the event before preceding, which was the Jackal Chubby Deep, and I just threw that up, and that's what I caught my fish on pre-fish. So that's, of course, what I was going to throw on day one, and got a bag quite early on that, and probably caught the next 3 or 4 upgrades. Even though the fishing did slow, probably caught the next 3 or 4 upgrades on that particular lure.
Right. And given that you were chasing blacks in Gippsland and you were chasing yellows in Coota, did you mix up your retrieves then? Or
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess I felt more confident in a way and comfortable in my retrieves and fishability on these yellows, because it was much more what I'm accustomed to at home, fishing these sort of seaway areas. And not that I always fish seaways, but just like targeting yellowfin. Like I said earlier, I always feel like if I find them in concentration, that I can generally catch them, work out how to catch them. And yeah, so it was very much a different retrieve. It was more of just a standard roll, cast it out as far as you can, bounce it into the sand a couple of times and just slowly roll it back and just wait for them to climb on. And the water wasn't crystal clear. I was thinking I was fishing 6 pound leader predominantly on that first day for majority of the lures I was throwing.
Okay. And so you got your bag early. How'd the day progress? Like, did you kind of upgrade throughout the day, or you obviously got a cracking fish? Or a couple
Yeah. So, I mean, I started on the crankbaits, and then what happened is that as that tide picked up and the sort of the tide kind of dropped a little bit in water level too. So I went away from that crankbait and went to the blade and continued catching fish, which did result in some upgrades later in the session, which was interesting because when that tide actually slowed up almost completely to a stop, I was like, okay, like they're probably not going to eat a crankbait or a reaction bait such as a blade right now because there's not a lot of tidal flow, and they're going to be more sort of into sort of a subtle presentation. So I grabbed my crab rod, threw a crab out, and like first cast on an olive cranky crab in the heavy, I got an upgrade, and I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So then I think I upgraded another 3 times on the cranky crabs on that first day as that water slowed, and then that sort of bite became a lot more finicky. But I think just because it wasn't a reaction bait in regards to it, a loud vibrating lure, that the fish could hone in on that and just sort of, I guess, it was a much more subtle bite. So the crab sort of came into its own in that regard.
Definitely. And in that situation, see, normally when I've spoken to you about fishing crabs, you're on bridges and things.
Yeah.
Was it like I just let it get to the bottom and just dead stick it, or do you walk it back and you shake it, or how'd that kind of look?
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to be, there was quite a predominant drop off that sort of came off from about a foot deep into about a 6 foot gutter. And what I wanted to do is I really wanted to sort of fish that vertical drop because those fish were quite tight to that edge. Yeah. So I'd literally throw onto the sand, even to the point where the tide had dropped and I was literally throwing onto dry sand.
Yeah.
And just winding back. As soon as it hit that lip of that gutter, I'd just kill it and just let it waft down in that sort of, in that current or what was remaining from that flow. And it was just the tiniest little like rattle. They weren't clunking it. It was just your typical yellowfin crab bite where they come in, they go like machine gun it, I call it. And you don't strike, you go like, because they don't always get pegged when they do that. It's different when they're clunking it. So they were just rattling it and I was just letting them just eat it. I was literally just going, okay, just lifting up for weight. Yep, no, I haven't got a fish on, feeding it back, just letting them rattle it, machine gun, lift it up. Oh, there's a little bit of weight. Okay, it's in his mouth, and then I'll wind on and load up. So I got like maybe 3 upgrades doing that on the first day, which was really good. It sort of just bumped my bag weight up. I think I had sort of maybe about 5.3 at that stage.
Yeah.
And then the tide completely stopped and turned, and that's when it sort of went very quiet, and I decided to move on, which was, I guess, close to midday by then. But a lot of the damage had been done. I thought, I'll just go and let's have a play around, and you never know, you might even get one more upgrade.
Sure. So, okay. So you moved on from there, and you caught some more fish after that, or that was it?
Yeah, no, I did. Actually, where I went on, and I didn't really expect to be upgrading the bag that I had at that stage, which I think was low to maybe mid-5s. But I did go to Goodwin Sands, and it was, I guess the breeze wasn't real strong. It was kind of just starting to puff. And I noticed there's a lot of boats fishing out wider. Must have been targeting deeper fish. And I was like, I'm just going to go up on the sands. I know it's pretty much glassed out and probably going to be tough, but I know there's good fish here. I saw them yesterday. I caught them yesterday. It's going to have a go. And I've got nothing to lose. So I went up there and ended up catching in about a 45-minute window. I ended up catching a 37.5 and a 39 fork.
Right.
Yeah, which were both upgrades. So
yeah, I was going to say, if you're over 5.5 and then you upgrade with that, you're throwing out big fish.
Yeah. So I had, I think, maybe a couple of 36s or something that I got rid of, 35.5. I can't remember the exact weights, which sort of bumped me up to that sort of 6 kilo mark, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry, I can't remember whether you said, what were you throwing over the sands?
Just shallow cranks. So cranker cranks, just slow rolling them in, and the fish were just climbing on and boofing them. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah, I think I caught 3 or 4 fish there, 2 smaller ones, and obviously the 2 big ones that upgraded my bag.
Yeah, that's it. Steve Steer will be very happy to hear it. You put a good part of your bag together with his lures.
Yeah, and it's really good. It's great when you can use your sponsored product and do well and be successful. It's very rewarding.
Fair enough. All right. So, mate, you go back to the weigh-in. You're obviously leading by a good margin. I think Crommo was next in line at about 800 grams behind. So, mate, solid lead into day 2. Tell us about day 2.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a solid lead, but you know yourself, Andrew, in this game, like, you can crash and burn so easy. And it can be 1 or 2 things, or it can be a combination of things that can result in that. So as well as you can do on day 1, you're never overly confident. Well, I'm never overly confident going into a second day of a tournament, that's for sure, even if I do have a lead. Because there's so many variables in fishing, and you only need 1 or 2 of those to not go your way, and you can easily crash and burn quite quickly.
Yes. But however, the difference between this and the Gippsland one, Gippsland, you had a few bites on day 1. This one, you had a lot of fish throughout the day.
Yeah, and that was the difference. And I guess that's why I was much more confident and comfortable in this event, because I was targeting the fish that I'd normally target. I'm fishing techniques more similar and retrieve more similar to what I normally do. Everything felt a lot more natural and comfortable in this event than it did in the Gippslands. Like, when I went to Gippslands, I really felt like I wouldn't say out of my comfort zone, but really sort of hanging it out there, where what I did at Coota was very similar to what I do at home and the way I fish at home, which sort of gave me a lot of confidence in, I guess, that I could probably go out there and repeat, maybe not the same size bag, but at least be able to catch a respectful bag on the second day and have a strong finish.
And just before we get into that, what did you think you needed to win?
Well, I mean, I had 800 grams on Crommo after day 1, so I think, well, if he gets a 5 kilo bag or 5.2, right, like he caught on the first day, I need to get 800 grams less to be the same weight.
Yeah, that's right.
So you kind of do the maths in your head, and you go, well, if I get 4 kilos, I'm in with a chance.
Yeah.
If I get 4.5, I'm going to be hard to beat.
Yeah.
If I get 5, I reckon I'll probably put it away. Okay?
Yeah.
So I was sort of thinking, I thought I could probably get 4 to maybe 4.5.
Yeah.
And just went and repeated exactly what I did on the first day. However, the fishing was very different on the second day, which I'll get to in a minute. But going into that second day, you never really know, but you do have to set yourself a goal, and that goal was sort of between 4 and 4.5 kilos.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as the discussion will move on, we'll see that you obviously eclipsed that quite nicely. So tell us how you did it.
Yeah. So obviously went to where I caught the fish the day before, down the front, pulled up, not far from my good mate Cam down the front there, and it wasn't the same. The fish, that I guess the stage of the tide was different. The water clarity had changed. It was much dirtier on the second day, and probably didn't catch a fish for the first maybe half an hour, 40 minutes.
Oh, dear.
Which in the back of my mind was like, when I didn't panic, but when I saw the water when I pulled up, I'm like, this doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. Yeah. It's not like it was yesterday, but I didn't panic because I knew it would come. I didn't know if that would come in an hour. I didn't know if it would come in 2 hours. I didn't know if it would come in 3 hours. But I knew at some stage of the tide, the fish, I had confidence from what I'd seen in the previous 2 days, that fish would move through that area.
Yeah.
And knowing that when they did come, it wasn't going to be only 2 bites. When they did come, I was probably going to catch them and catch them good. That's what made me stay. That's what made me stay in that initial period until that, I guess, that clean water moved through, brought the fish with it. As soon as that came through, they came on the chew and started catching fish like I did the 2 prior days.
Right. And was it pretty much an hour? Like, because you got more or less an hour's time difference? Like
I think it was probably more in that 45, like tide-wise, and I think there's some other factors that may have influenced it as well, but I think it was sort of that more 45-minute difference between the tidal phase. So when we got there on the first day, the fish were there and were moving through when we arrived. The second day, and Cam was no different. There was no rods being bent for that first 30 to 45 minutes because the fish hadn't moved through. They just weren't present. So, but we both knew that. We both knew that at some point during the tide that the fish would move through and we'd have opportunities.
Yeah, okay. That's a really interesting observation.
Mm.
All right. How'd you go when they moved through? How'd you go getting them?
Caught them just like I did the day before. Started on the crankbait. As soon as that they pushed through, it wasn't a fisher cast. The fish numbers were well down on the second day. I went down to 4 pound leader to get the bites on the second day, where 6 was sufficient on the first. It just wasn't on the second. So I think changing leader helped with that. And then when they did move through, again, it was just have half a dozen casts with that. If it's not working, pick up something different, cast that. And I just rotated. I rotated between the crankbaits, the blade, and I brought on the second day, from what I saw and learned on that first day, I brought the crab into play earlier on that second day because I knew that was going to give me the bigger fish down the front. And that's ultimately what my biggest fish for the event and the biggest bream came on for the event was a cranker crab in olive on that second day.
Right. And that was must have been the 40 centimetre one.
Yeah, 40 to the fork. It was a bit of a beast. They're really high, these sea run yellows at Mallacoota, and it was a pretty impressive fish.
Yeah, very nice. All right. So a couple of things on that. What was the blade you were running?
That was an eco gear. I'm not sure on the exact colour. It's kind of like greeny pink. It's got stripes on it. But yeah, so I don't think it was I don't think the colour was too imperative. That second day when that water was a bit dirty, I upsized because I was using it. I think it was like a VX30 on the first day.
Yep.
I went to a VX40 on the second day, and it wasn't to catch bigger fish. It was just because the water was dirtier, and I just wanted to displace a bit more movement with that blade and just create that sort of wider, louder vibration. And it wasn't a real aggressive retrieve. It was just throw it out, let it sink, and just small lifts, really, just enough to feel it start moving. It was almost like a bass retrieve if you fished blades for bass before.
Yeah, okay. One thing I didn't ask in any of the interviews is, are you running any scent?
No. Like quite often I will put scent on a lure if I'm getting sort of inquiries and they're not sticking, or I'm getting follows and they're not having a nibble. But I guess in both of these events that I fished, when the fish ate them, they ate them proper. And probably pulled a couple of hooks on the second day at Coota, but that was probably just through angling really and just being a little bit excited with the fish I was catching. You get excited and you probably start going a little bit hard on them. And when you've got a 5 kilo bag and you pole them 33s and 34s in and they're not even upgrades, like it probably doesn't matter if you lose 1 or 2 fish along the way.
Yeah, that's it. That is crazy. So at what point did you go, I reckon I've got this?
When I landed that 40, because like I said, I don't look at the scores. I don't look at the results. I don't just stay clear of that. I focus on my own game, thinking about what I'm doing, not what other people are doing. So in the back of my head, someone could have a 6-7 kilo bag. I could have a 2 kilo lead. Who knows? But I did feel like when I boated that 40 centimetre fish, and I think I had pretty much, it was like very close to 5 kilos on the app. And then I boated that 40 centimetre fish, and I think it threw up to just over 5.5 kilos. I knew at that stage, and knowing that there's not many 40 centimetre fish, I think there's only one 40 centimetre fish weighed in for that event. Knowing that there's not a lot of those size fish in that system at the moment, I thought I may have drove the nail in the coffin at that stage, but you never know.
That's right.
But I was like, that's going to be hard to beat. So, yeah. Fair
enough. All right, before we move off the fishing, what rods and what have you were you running down there?
Yeah, so I was fishing a G Loomis GLX drop shot rod with the crabs. Probably a heavier, I actually fish that around structure a lot, and it's a bit of a heavier rod, probably not that suitable for open water, but that's just what I had rigged up. And I had that rigged up that from pre-fish day, where if I go up and fish up these creeks and I'm throwing in the snags, that's the rod and what I'm throwing in there. So I had 6 pound on that, 6 pound creaky braid, 6 pound Ocean leader, 2,500 twin power. I think it was a twin power. It might have been a Stratic on the crab rod, 2,500 Stratic. And it was just, that was the setup for the crabs. The blades, I was fishing a Poison, so a Shimano Poison Andrina rod. It's an ultralight. I think it's 6'10" off memory. It might be 6'8". And that was perfect. Really light, really crisp, light in the hand with, I think it was a 1,000 twin power on it. Super light combo. Could throw that all day. And then for the crankbaits, I was actually throwing a TSR, another Loomis rod, a TSR. I think I threw a Zodius on the first day, and then I went to the 4 pound leader. So I just swapped rods because that's what I had on there. And it was a TSR with a 2,500 Vanford with, again, 6 pound creek in 4 pound Ocean leader.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, very good. Very good. All right. That's a great rundown of the competition. And once again, congratulations for such a convincing win. It's pretty special. What do you get to take home for this one?
Yeah, so it was it's 5Ks plus there was another 500 for Big Bream, so 5.5 for the Mallacoota experience.
Yeah, mate, that's crazy. It was a good week.
It was a great week. I mean, if you could do that every week, you'd certainly give away your day job, wouldn't you?
You really would. You really, really would. And, mate, we spoke about this before. So last time I spoke to you when you were driving back from the events.
Yeah.
And Tassie was off the list. Probably wasn't happening.
It was, yep.
What's happening now, mate?
Well, I've been thinking about it, Andrew. And I'm thinking it'd be a shame not to go to Tassie this year, given the start I've had.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of co-anglers ring me up and said, you should come to Tassie. You enjoy it.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
It'd be lovely, wouldn't it? And so I've given it some thought, and you know what? I think I'm just going to put my entry in and sign up tomorrow.
Well, there you go, mate. There you go. And by the time this comes out, this will be last week. So
yeah,
that's awesome. So, mate, you've had some experience in Tassie. So you did have an experience one time with one Stephen Morgan. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was. Oh, geez, that was a few years ago. I was fishing as a non-boater.
Yeah, okay.
This would have been 15 years ago, approximately, maybe even longer, probably longer. And I was fishing with Steve Morgan at St. Helens, actually. And we're fishing in this little back bay that he often goes and fishes, and we're fishing there. And I was throwing these cranks at the time, and I started catching fish, and Steve was looking at me, and I was like, oh, there's another one. There's another one. Steve, can you grab the net? Steve, can you grab the net again, mate? And I could see him looking, thinking, what's he doing? And I was fishing these cranks, and the good thing is, and why they're so good on these blacks is they suspend. So they've got neutral buoyancy. And I think that was the difference on this occasion, that he might have been fishing in a atomic or something of that nature with a slow float, and the fish just weren't reacting to that. They just needed that hang time. And actually had him 5 zip at one stage.
5 zip, Big Morgan.
Yeah.
From the back.
Big Morgs. In his words, he got a reach around from his non-boater.
Did he?
Yeah, that's what he said. So,
yeah, fair enough.
But then, obviously being the type of bloke that I am, I gave him one of these lures and he proceeded to fill his bag. And a great story from that event is that we both actually came away with winners' checks.
Right.
Myself in the non-boating category and Steve in the boaters.
Well, there you go.
In the St. Helens round. So that was a really good experience. Obviously fishing with Steve and, being able to teach him a few things as well.
Yeah. So, mate, just we're leading in. This should go to air before everyone goes to Tasmania. So with the Cranker Cranks, basically the Cranker Crank is it's about a 35 mil lure, comes in a deep and shallow.
Yep.
But suspends and has some awesome colours.
Yeah, it's got a huge colour range. It's a very underrated lure. It's good on yellows and blacks. And guys that fish sort of those areas, those arenas, would be very familiar with that lure. They've accounted for multiple tournament wins. And they're very subtle as opposed to like a jackal that's got a vibrating loud rattle. They're a very subtle crankbait. And you can fish them, I guess, for wary fish at times where you don't want anything that's super aggressive. So I'll be certainly making sure my Cranker Crank box is well stocked leading into this Tasmanian tour.
Yeah, and that's why I brought it up, because it gives people a chance to put a couple or a few in their kits and they'll be well equipped.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just like the crabs. Like if you're serious about your brim tournament fishing, you're mad if you don't have a handful of crabs and a handful of Cranker Cranks, because they just work. They just catch fish, and they might not all the time, but there will be a scenario, there'll be a situation where they'll just outperform anything else available.
Exactly. And look, as you probably know, I did a couple of interviews, or an interview with Steve Steer, and he's what I'd class as a thinking angler. Very, very clever guy, and he's designed some great lures, obviously.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's so innovative. He's a top bloke. He knows his fishing. Like he's done it all before, which is really good. To have that experience and to be able to design lures for our domestic market, we're quite lucky actually in that regard.
Yeah, no, that's very good. All right, mate. I think that's a terrific rundown. I want to congratulate you on the 2 wins and the 2 wins from last year and the 3rd place in the grand final, mate. It's been a stellar 12 months. Let's see if it continues into March.
Yeah, fingers crossed, hey. It's been a while since I've been at Tassie, but we'll give it a run, give it a shake, and we've given it everything it's got. So thanks for the best wishes. And again, thanks for having me on, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, mate. I'll talk to you again soon.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
All right. So there you have it, everybody. What a great lineup from the non-boaters through to the boaters. It was an awesome episode. I recorded it straight after the competition, so it's been about a month now since I recorded it. But thank you to all the guests. I appreciate what they've shared. And yeah, it was such an awesome competition. In other news, Sacred Soul Wellness, they're just about to start taking orders on their round 2 of the beginners course. First one sold out. I think we're about 4 weeks or so, more or less, from a new beginners course. The Monday night thing, I don't know what the numbers are, but you basically sign up for 8 weeks. You get full access to the whole program, so you can come to any class you like, but you get exclusive access to the Monday night beginners class. Now, they run this a little bit differently. They have 2 teachers on, so they basically have one teacher instructing, one teacher going around and helping people out so that you can get some special one-on-one attention at the time when you probably need it most when you're a beginner. They take a lot of comments, a lot of people go, yeah, I can't do that stuff. I can't bend. And that's the point. That's why you have to go and do it. So Sacred Soul Wellness in Caringbah, just look them up and go and have a look at that. All right. I'm going to wrap this one up. Look, I appreciate all you guys listening and hanging around. Like I keep saying, there's a few changes. And honestly, the thing that's holding me up is just working with technology and making things happen. It just doesn't happen in 5 minutes for me. But it's coming. It's going to be exciting, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. So have a great week, and I will talk to you next week on the Bream Fishing Project.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you were informed, inspired and entertained. If you were able to learn something or just enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing and rate us on your favourite podcasting platform.